Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
0 for 1 this afternoon. Switch hitter up there as a lefty against the righty Lorenzen. And turns on this pitch. It's a high drive to right, and it is into the bullpen and gone. Caratini with his first of the year. It's a 2-run shot. And the Brewers lead it 5-0.
Hernandez readies. Check second, the payoff. And Senzel launches one high and deep to left field. Back goes Thompson, looks up. It is gone! The homerless drought is over on a walk-off 2-run home run from Nick Senzel, and the Reds walk off with a sweep over the Rangers.
Allmark back work, gave it away. Verhaeghe to the front of the net. It's poked at. Backhand. They score. Matthew Tkachuk in overtime. And the Panthers win it 4-3. And there's going to be a Game 6 in Sunrise on Friday. Everly near circle. Throws it in front. Kirching scores! Welcome to the National Tide Karche. His first NHL goal in the Stanley Cup playoffs. 2-1 Seattle.
Aldama gives for Jackson the paint. Back to Jackson. Open 3. Ring it up. 1-3 on the board. Jared Jackson now has 16.
Goes out to center screen. Jimmy didn't need it. Got cut off by Holiday. Spins. Fires along 2. He got nothing but net. It's 42 for Jimmy Bucket's mid-range.
It's over. For the first time in a decade, the Knicks are moving on to the second round. Final score in Game 5, the Knicks 106, the Cavaliers 95. Knicks fans, you've waited a long time. Celebrate. Honk your horns. It's happening. Knicks are moving on in the playoffs.
A lot going on. Good Thursday draft holiday morning. Pretty pumped, man. Pretty pumped.
I'm excited.
I know you got your Niners gear on, looking good.
Even though they don't have a pick today.
That's all right. And Lance, you trust.
Do we?
Psych.
Actually, I think this year's pick was the Christian McCaffrey trade, I think.
Is it?
I think.
It might be Trey Lance. I got to go back and look.
I don't remember which compensation was which, but
yeah.
If it was for Christian McCaffrey, I can deal with that. If it's for Trey Lance, I don't feel as good.
What, like the stuff you put in your hair conditioner or well?
Yeah, no, that's conditionally.
Oh.
Little different.
Oh.
Same root word.
Mint condition. I used to sing some sappy love song. I can't even remember what it was. Pretty Brown Eyes, I think. Pretty Brown Eyes. Shane, was that? Never mind.
Brown-eyed girl?
No, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
I think it was Pretty Brown Eyes. But I was asking Shane about an R&B group, and I'm just not thinking he was listening to R&B back there in Iowa.
You know, it's possible that may have been a different demographic.
Shane, what were you listening to in 1989 in high school?
Beastie Boys.
No Sleep Till Brooklyn?
Yeah, that was probably on the playlist.
Was it?
Sabotage?
Can't Wait to Get Out of Norwalk? Is that what you were thinking?
Sabotage probably wasn't until about 90.
Norwalk's finest.
3 or 4.
Pardon?
Sabotage wasn't until like.
Oh, it was a little later? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at this dude.
Big Beastie Boys guy. I didn't know this about Shano.
Yeah. Now, here's a little story I got to tell.
I'm not really into the Beastie Boys.
Yeah, kind of overrated.
Yeah, not for me.
Yeah.
You know, probably LL Cool J.
Icon.
Fat Boys, stuff like that.
The Fat Boys are back.
Ladies love.
Yeah. Oh,
yep.
yeah.
I was listening to that.
Shane was devastated when the Fat Boys broke up.
Well, they broke up because one passed away.
Well, it happens. I mean,
the devastation was there.
Was a walking health ailment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's back when they weren't really on top of diabetes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yes, the technology's gotten dramatically better.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Still sometimes have instances like last week where you're like, hey, babe, can you come make sure I don't die here on the radio?
Yeah. It's kind of morbid, Ravi.
I know. I joke, but you know.
But I do need to redo my life insurance. So that's along that lines.
I make that joke with my wife all the time. I was like, well, I mean, if you don't get here in time, you got a nice little payout.
Yeah, that's.
And she always gets there in time. So I think she likes me more than the money.
Yeah. Well, it must be the money.
Either that or my life insurance policy is not big enough.
It's not that funny. Don't encourage him, Shane. It's kind of morbid.
It's a little funny.
Anyway, I'm excited because it is draft day. the Steelers, they have a top pick.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm okay with that. Anything above 20, I'm pleased.
I mean, I'd be happy with anything in the first 2 rounds, but
that's all right. You guys are built to win now.
Yeah. If one of the quarterbacks exists and has an elbow intact.
Wow. It's going to be a fantastic show. Lot going on. We'll get to Mitch Sherman at 8. Always a great segment. It's a shame we only get him every other week, but he's popular. If you're not taking advantage of The Athletic, you need to. It's like 50 cents a week. It's $1.99 a month for 12 months.
Oh, it's totally worth it.
I would invest, and they're everywhere.
And I think, they are. That's kind of the most impressive thing. Not to I don't make any money for this, but
I'm just trying to educate the listeners
for The Athletic or anything. But they have coverage on everything, specified coverage on just about everything, which is kind of crazy.
And you can build your platform how you want it, the teams you want.
It's kind of like the app is kind of like a social media where you build your feed.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna monitor them closely just to see if they get scores updated faster than like the ESPN mobile app, which has really gone by the wayside.
Yeah, it really has.
It is not very good. Like I've looked for several alternatives for like the last 4 or 5 years. I've used Scores and Odds. I've used lots of different ones. Just because ESPN is a little slow.
And it's it doesn't have a great user interface. Like it's not super easy
to navigate,
to get where I want to go all the time.
It sounds like life.
Because appreciate ESPN for preparing me for, the school.
It's kind of hard to get to where I want to go.
I know.
Like that.
I know.
Yeah, life is crazy like that. So we'll get the great Mitch Sherman at 8. We'll try to win you some money with Brian Edwards at 8:45.
Ooh, I like money.
Bruntz,
my guy.
We're getting him on the heels of L's though.
Yeah,
they took a bad one last night. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Nebraska baseball. We're going to get into a little bit of portaling. To portal or not to portal? That is the question. Couple locals. Avante Dickerson.
Yeah.
Hitting the portal. I love the revisionist history. Somebody tweeted yesterday. I don't even remember the word he used. I think he said kerfuffling.
Mm-hmm.
All the
kerfuffle
that I had over Avante Dickerson. And I was like, really? I'll be curious. And he's kind of weird anyway, so I don't really know what he was talking about. But I do remember really trying to get Nebraska back into that one late.
Oh, I remember that.
And I just never got the sense that he wanted to stay home because he wasn't a Nebraska.
He's not like a native.
Yeah. Coach Chin's made a really good run late just to
I remember
go back and forth.
And I don't think you'll mind me sharing this. I think we were doing a show together in a previous life on signing day when he was supposed to sign the early signing day with Minnesota.
I remember.
And he didn't.
Yep.
And your phone is blowing up with the previous staff being like, Damon, what's going on?
Yeah. I remember that.
And it was super bizarre.
Yeah.
Because, and not that you're not as well connected as anybody, but it's like, shouldn't they know what's going on?
Yeah.
It was just kind of a surreal moment to watch it happening because we're doing a show and your phone's sitting like between us.
Yeah.
And it's like Scott Frost, Coach Chins, like just the entire, I think Travis Fisher, like the whole, like every 3 minutes, a different Nebraska coach was calling you about Avante Dickerson.
They're calling me. So we'll see where AD ends up. Hunter Salas.
Wake Forest, Demon Deacons. I didn't like how that. I was, as DB called it, by the way.
What's that?
You called it.
Yeah. I was more. I would like to say I did. I was just going with a gut of what the barbershop tells all.
Sure.
The barbershop tells.
You didn't go like hard, like I guarantee he's going.
Yeah.
But you were like, hey, Wake Forest, Forbes, like that's where you need to be.
There was just a weird line of questioning that was going on in the shop. And he decides on Wake Forest. So now everybody's kind of doom and gloom.
Yeah.
It's like, what's going on with Nebraska athletics? And I really feel bad for basketball because I think everybody was pretty excited for Coach Hoiberg. I really do.
You mean like hiring him?
Yes.
Oh, 100%. I was more excited for Hoiberg than I was for Frost.
So
well, I don't know if more excited. I was more certain he would succeed than I was about Frost.
Were you?
I was.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see
thought the track record was better for Hoiberg. Because as much as, listen, I'm not going to pretend like I wasn't in on Frost like everybody else was early, right?
Yeah.
But I even acknowledged then, I was like, the resume's maybe a little lighter than you love.
Yeah, I remember.
Because of not a ton of head coaching experience, whatever. Whereas with Hoiberg,
I will remember you.
do.
See, since we can't play music ever, I just sing my own.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know I'm terrible, but
the
deal with it, I guess.
No, yeah. So I was more convinced that Hoiberg was going to be successful, and I was more shocked they actually landed Hoiberg.
Yeah,
I wasn't totally sure they could get him because the connection to Nebraska isn't as strong as it was with Frost, obviously. So yeah, it is. I mean, somebody asked me on Twitter yesterday. They were like, "Hey, real talk. Like, what does Nebraska need to do?"
Yeah,
it's important,
and that's a hard question.
It is. And listen, let's not go all revisionist history like my man Jeff was on Twitter yesterday about AD. But at the time, William Dollar Bill Moose made the hires people wanted him to make.
Absolutely.
So let's cut
absolutely
that out. Let's cut that out.
Now he didn't do much else.
No.
But he was brought in to make specific hires, especially with Frost. And then when Hoiberg became available, which again to me is the more impressive land.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't as much of a natural connection there. But
and for all the hand wringing and consternation over Will Bolt, he does have a Big Ten title.
Yeah. I mean, the hirings were home runs. The results haven't been.
Yeah. Would you call Will a home run?
For what Nebraska fans wanted, I think so. Nebraska fans wanted Will Bolt.
Yeah, and I think my guy, I think Hurrdat did too. So
I think for what people wanted here, Will Bolt was a home run. I think nationally the other two were home runs. But just because the hiring is a home run doesn't mean the results will be. That's what we haven't learned to necessarily disconnect that. Just because you made the right hire at the time, which they couldn't have hired anybody besides Frost. They just couldn't have in that moment. They could have hired somebody besides Hoiberg, but Hoiberg was the best option. Like I could not believe they got him. So the hirings being home runs versus the results not working out, you kind of have to separate that a little bit. You know what I mean?
I'm with you. We are live from the H&H Chevrolet studios. We set the lineup. Oh, I didn't finish. My man Justen Gammel. We'll talk NFL draft. We didn't give him a big enough segment. I'm kind of mad about that. I strong-armed Shane before we left. Shane told me to zip it. He's the producer. He'll figure out the draft the rest of the couple of days. So I said, okay, fine. So Justen doesn't have the big enough window, though. Shane. I'm just saying.
That's unfortunate.
Might have exaggerated puking a little bit.
Yeah, just a little.
Who's exaggerating?
Just a little bit, Scott. Are you still trying to figure out? Did Bill text you? Because I texted him. I said, hey, good morning.
No, Shane texted me the code. So I'm in. I'm just figuring out which TV is which.
Oh, you're going to pull an Andrew. So usually he can just push buttons and he figures it out.
That's kind of what I'm doing.
He's like Benjamin Button. How about that guy on the NFL Network right now, Ryan Leaf?
Ryan?
Good morning, Ryan. This was an exceptional day for you. Once upon a time.
Probably as good as his career got.
The draft?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel bad for Ryan. Ryan had a lot of things going on.
He had some demons.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
It didn't go great for him, but draft day was nice.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a ton, a lot going on. My kid is going to Bryan, Texas this morning. He had to be at the airport at 6 a.m.
I've been to Bryan, Texas.
Have you really?
Yeah, it's the sister city to College Station.
Yes, it is.
My best friend's dad is the police chief there, so don't get in any trouble.
No, that dude's pretty straight-laced. He's a lot better than his dad.
I'm more worried about Sauter, honestly.
A lot better than his dad. Oh, that's right. Sauter did have to get up early.
Sauter went down with him, right?
So my man was going through the security check line at like 6:10 this morning, and I wouldn't necessarily call him an early riser.
Sauter?
Caleb.
Oh, Caleb, okay.
But, I mean, he is pretty good. He's not a guy that – he's not a sleeper either, so he's probably somewhere in the middle. because he goes to bed early.
Does he?
Oh, yeah. It lights out at like 9. Now, he may be on his phone for a little bit, but he's going to bed. So 6 a.m. check-in. I think their flight leaves at 7:20 this morning.
So just about here a couple minutes here.
Yeah, they got their work cut out, too. Another tough draw. But when you're playing on the top shoe circuit around the country, there are no easy ones. So, hey, you got it. So...
Oh, wrong show, but we're getting close.
So safe
we're
travels
closer.
To my little guy. He got it, my man Will Tiemann. By the way, how far is we talk about baseball? And I
Stephen Willie Tiemann.
He got it.
Where is Shark LaFay when you need him?
Shark.
I mean, Shark cut that man's truck in half.
Yeah, that's. I think that man maybe got hit in the head too many times.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was the indication of the film.
He had a little. Is SCI? Are they not the hardest working people in America? My man is getting it in every morning around 7. He is working his tail off.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's like, hey, listen, for all your security needs. No, I'm just kidding. No shameless plug. Although he is pretty cool, and he's a sports fan too.
Yeah, you still got to pay us for us to give you a shout out.
Isn't it weird though? So he and our security guy is a Raiders fan like Shane.
Well, is Shane a Raiders fan or is he a Lions fan?
He
Touchdown! Jackpot, baby!
Well, today's tailor-made, so he's back to golf.
Okay.
He's either golf, Lions, or Raiders.
Golf, Lions.
So are you doubly excited for draft day, like unlike nobody else that cheers for the NFL, Shane? Because that's kind of weird.
No, I'm not really excited at all. I mean, I don't really care what the Lions get because they're a good team. I do care what the Raiders get.
Wow, he's calling the Lions good. Are the Lions good?
Compared to the Raiders, yes.
I think people are excited about
Do you believe in the Lions?
Do you believe in Lions?
People act like Minnesota didn't win 13 games last year. They're still the best team in that division.
Yes.
Seriously. Seriously, they're still and like let's not act like Cousins isn't playing on his last year either. So he'll put up prolific numbers.
Oh, 100%. He's a contract year guy.
Oh, so are we really going to act like the Vikings aren't going to win this division, Shane? All the shout out to Mike
Are the Lions
Schaefer.
a top 10 team?
No.
Do they teeter on it a little bit?
A top 10?
Top 10?
No.
I don't think so.
They're like be happy to make the playoffs next year team. So it makes them what, like top two-thirds?
I could see a similar season. And I was one of the guys, like a few others, that had them well over their win total. Like that was my surprise team. So I mean, that's pretty good. Well done. Are you sure you don't want to put that on the NFL Network, or you don't want to press your luck?
No, we can. I'm feeling good about my. I'm feeling good about my navigating of the thing now. So,
big bucks.
You in a good mood or what?
You want Good Morning Football?
Big bucks, no whammy. I got to show you the message he sent me yesterday.
Rule?
I showed you your earlier one, right? He goes, "Oh, you guys are so funny. You're just chumming it up."
No, you didn't show me that one.
No, when you said what you said. Yesterday about us.
Yeah.
But it's not like that. It's business. It's not pleasure.
No, listen, I'm not saying that you guys don't like talk about important stuff, but there is like a little bit of I think there's a mutual man crush going on.
Stop.
No, come on.
Stop.
It's okay.
Yes, sir.
He's the shrink is rationalizing with the shrink.
I'm not hating.
Are you going Obi-Wan on me? He said it's okay.
No, it is.
Oh my gosh.
Listen.
It's okay. Hi, Coach McGuire. Good morning to you.
It is okay.
It is?
Yeah, who cares?
Like
That's
Nightbird.
great.
It's okay. It's
It's
okay.
okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. No, it's all good. I'm happy for you.
What?
And I got up there and just crushed it.
No, it's nice to make new friends.
Oh, listen at this.
You guys, come on. You guys are friendly. It's not just business. You guys are friendly.
Yeah, very much so.
That's what I mean. Like that's great. It's nice to find new people that you get along with.
Those guys were jacked up to get back in the building.
Yeah, like I'm not hating. I'm a little jealous, to be honest.
Oh, don't be.
I'm a little bit.
With great pressure comes great responsibility.
That's not quite how the line goes.
It is for me.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
I say that out loud the way I said it. It makes a lot of sense.
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so I think it goes that way.
You're no like Uncle Ben from Spider-Man over here.
No, although if it doesn't go the way I want to, it may low key disappear. So anyway, stop it.
I didn't do anything.
Stop it.
I'm just hanging out.
Hey, so we could go baseball. We could go playoffs because the playoffs. Yeah, so it's official now, like you're all in the work deal. Because when I allow you to go back and forth while I'm watching a sporting event,
oh yeah,
you've reached a different threshold. Because I don't typically mess around.
I did feel honored.
But I had to call my shot.
You did, yeah.
I had to call my shot. Said the Kraken would win again last night.
You said the Kraken would win. You said that Boston series is going 7.
Yeah.
Which I mean, makes sense.
Listen, so
Panthers at home for 6.
Yeah, and they're having a hard time with Kachuk. And I still don't like the fact. Now I'm just lamenting over their greatness but I still don't like the fact they're kind of they've been outplayed.
Right, they're getting by
in stretches, right? It's not their A game, and a lot of people don't put a lot of stock in the regular season.
So this is,
but the Panther. I said this last week, right? They split during the regular season, so it would when you've given them 33 a third of their losses.
Yeah,
it's like that's bad math. Sorry, Jamie. R.I.P.
No, but what is Florida? What are the Panthers scared about? Nothing. They are not. They're maybe the one team in the league,
and
that there's not an intimidation factor.
And they are putting a ton of pressure on Boston. So that one, I feel like that one's going 7, and it should. I mean, they'll win in Florida.
Boston's not playing great right now, though.
They're not.
I mean, they're. And listen, I'm not going to pretend to be.
It's like I told you last night. They're sloppy with the puck in their own end,
which is just it's dangerous. No matter if you're not taking care of possession, whatever, whether it's football, basketball, hockey, whatever, and especially in your own end, you're going to have problems.
Yeah, I remember, and it's kind of one of the things that I always. It's not like I'm Darren Panging this thing or anything, but hot take. So my buddy's a huge Red Wings fan, and he's been a Red Wings fan since I've known him, which is about 12 years old. And his when they were really, really rolling, people used to always try to dump and chase with them because they were afraid to carry the puck. They just didn't want to try to possess the puck because Detroit was so skilled. And I always would joke with him. I said, man, turn it over in your own zone if you want to. Like the Red Wings would make you pay.
Yeah.
If you couldn't advance the puck out of your own end. And Florida has really pressured Boston with that.
Yeah, they've done a really good job of making them again, like you said, making them pay for their mistakes.
So who didn't I have the Stones to predict the win?
Kraken.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not saying
outright.
Yeah. So I did say that one was that's going back to Colorado.
But wouldn't shock you if Kraken ended up winning that series.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Because I'm just looking at the favorite. Look at what's going on in sports. I mean, you could be a Milwaukee Buck right now.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get to Giannis, but
dude, I loved it though. You said something that I think was spot on though. Shane, do you have that Giannis clip? What are the odds that you have Giannis ante take a breako?
He'll find it. He'll find it during those breaks.
So I'm just telling you, that's what he's on right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he cut us short on the clock
a little bit.
He's buying himself time, and he's not talking to me. So that's fine. I didn't mean anything by the Lions reference. You can be a fan of whoever you want to be, however many 86 NFL teams you have.
There's 2.
It's too many.
And it's just really
Sauter's tweeting. Shouldn't he be on the plane?
Maybe they haven't quite got on yet.
Man, we got to talk what's it mean to be a favorite. That's Ravi, Lulla. That's Shane Schillerberg. It's going to be a fantastic show. Coffee and Cream from the H&H studio next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes.
Do you view this season as a failure?
Oh my God. You asked me the same question last year, Eric. Okay. Do you get the promotion every year?
Do you view this season as a failure?
Oh my God. You asked me.
Do you view this season as a failure?
Oh my God. You asked me the same question last year, Eric. Okay. Do you get the promotion every year on your job? No, right? So every year you work is a failure. Yes or no? No. Every year you work towards something, towards a goal, right? Which is to get a promotion, to be able to take care of your family, to be able, I don't know, provide the house for them or take care of your parents. You work towards a goal. It's not a failure. It's steps to success. Michael Jordan played 15 years, won 6 championships. The other 9 years was a failure? That's what you're telling me? No, I'm asking you a question. Yes or no? Okay, exactly. So why are you asking me that question? It's a wrong question. There's no failure in sports.
Do you view this season?
Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Do you view this season as a failure?
Oh my God. You asked me the same question last year, Eric. Okay. Do you get the promotion every year on your job? No, right? So every year you work is a failure. Yes or no? No. Every year you work towards something, towards a goal, right? Which is to get a promotion, to be able to take care of your family, to be able, I don't know, provide the house for them or take care of your parents. You work towards a goal. It's not a failure. It's steps to success. Michael Jordan played 15 years, won 6 championships. The other 9 years was a failure? That's what you're telling me? No, I'm asking you a question. Yes or no? Okay, exactly. So why are you asking me that question? It's a wrong question. There's no failure in sports.
Yeah, I don't know. Welcome back. Coffee and Cream. We love the coffee part, courtesy of the Beanery.
The Beanery.
I think they're up to 4 locations. Most recently out in the other land of milk and honey.
Yeah.
Home of the Dragons.
Gretna.
By the way, shout out to Coach Haberman, who will be coaching at Gretna East.
Okay.
You know one thing I really appreciate about him?
What's that?
I think we need to give Coach Haberman a little love.
Okay.
So I don't know how you are when you take another job someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you all the way out? Do you still do both jobs? Whatever.
Okay.
Coach Haberman works his tail off still for Westside.
Yeah.
Even though he's on his way out to Gretna East.
Sure. Yeah.
Good on Coach Haberman.
Yeah, there's a
handling his classroom business.
Yeah.
I see him still promoting the kids on social media.
Yeah.
I've liked him from the jump, but
no, I mean, there's a level.
I might like his sons and his daughter more. Chloe's probably my favorite, but I mean, I just had to say that. I don't know why.
No, there's a level of integrity there.
It's pretty sharp, man. Like I'm vibing with,
because it's not even a thing that's like, if you don't do it, it's not that big of a deal because people understand.
Yeah.
They're like, I got a new job. He's kind of starting to mentally prepare for that. Like, you understand it, right? It's not one of those heinous things to do.
Heinous
to kind of
like Gacy or DeSalvo.
No, that's
Shane. By
different.
the way, this is kind of weird, but did DeSalvo really do it? This is Boston. Do you know what that is? Boston Strangler.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I watched the show the other day early on a Sunday morning, right? Getting my moral game right. I'm still torn on whether DeSalvo like had help. Was he coerced?
I'm not real deep in the Boston Strangler. Like,
yeah, I see. I'm a big historical serial.
Oh, so you like serial killer?
I love forensics.
Sure, yeah. It sounds bad when I say you like serial killers, but you know what I mean. You like the information,
right. For 3 years, I carried rubber gloves.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it was too painful to keep shaving down my fingertips. No, I'm kidding. It was basically to mix meat. I like to pat, touch raw chicken.
Yeah. Stuff. No, I got you.
That ain't wet. That ain't wet, man.
Child. So I think it's different when Giannis says what he says, right?
Yes.
Because I liked it. You weren't really vibing.
No,
it's a wrong question. There's no failure in sports.
That's not
not
true.
I'll say that's kind of the part where I was like, because there is failure in sports. I think it's different than what a lot of times people think it is.
Yeah.
Like, failure in sports exists, but it's not necessarily just losing, right? Like, losing isn't automatically failure, in my opinion.
I agree.
I think
if somehow, and I don't believe this is going to happen, but if somehow Boston doesn't win the cup, that's not a failure.
Right.
But it could be if they don't get out of the first round.
Sure.
No, yes.
Well, so I also...
Steve, 888-638-4876.
I also think you have to separate, because they had an incredibly successful regular season. Boston?
Oh, I thought you were talking about Milwaukee.
No, the regular season for
Boston.
Was
that childish what I did? I was taking a drink. I'm sorry.
No, you're okay.
So what's more of a failure than if you win the entire season, like the Patriots go to the Super Bowl and you lose, or if you're Boston this year and you don't win, or if you're what was the team in baseball that had the major league record for wins? Mariners
116.
Yeah.
Is that 04, 05?
That was 01.
Was it? Okay, thank you. I get on my. That was.
It was the first Ichiro year.
It's a dark stretch for your boy.
Yeah. Well,
is Boston comparable to that right now?
No, I think
it's a little premature. They're still up. They're up in the series.
Yeah, right. But honestly, this is a lot like the Golden State 2016 team.
Draymond missing
a game. They're ahead in the finals against the Cavs. They obviously end up losing, but like in the playoffs, that was a failure. That's still the most successful regular season anyone's ever had.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have to be able to separate some of these things. And, like the Patriots, that's a really good example, right? Because going 18-0 is incredible. Losing the Super Bowl is a failure, but I don't think it taints. For some people, it does. For some people, it taints the entire season. And that's fine if that's how you feel about it. And I'm sure for Bill Belichick, he doesn't care about going 18-0 and then being, losing the Super Bowl.
He'd rather get in at 8-8 and win that thing.
Absolutely, right? A lot of people are like,
yes, I know they play 17 now,
but at the time, yeah. But I think for me, it's become much more about, and we kind of talked about this last week about how much you enjoy or don't enjoy watching your team, and part of that is the whole regular season. It's not just the playoff run, right? Like the Warriors could go on a little run here and make the finals, let's say they lose the finals, but they make it. Does that make me feel that much better about this season? Not really.
All right, let me ask you something. Is it relative to expectations? Because right now, would Will Bolt be considering this baseball season a failure?
Ooh, relative to expectations are a huge part of this.
That's okay.
Absolutely. Because going and setting the NHL record for regular season wins sets a level of expectation that if they had gone, they'd won, 4 fewer games, right? Because the old record was 63, and they had 65. So let's say they win 60 instead of 65. Expectations are still there. It's not the same. It's a different level of, like if the Warriors had won 68 games instead of 73.
Do you view college different than pro?
I don't. But it's because I think I've taken my college mindset and applied it to a lot of my pro teams. Like, for instance, I don't consider Creighton's season a failure because they didn't win a national championship.
Oh, that's funny because remember, that was a thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a thing for like 3 weeks.
But had they gotten bounced in the first round, absolutely that's failure.
And I wish we still had Mac's answer to that because it was fantastic, I thought. And okay, fine. I'm a little biased.
Yeah, you like Mac?
I do. But it was still a good answer.
Absolutely.
But let's not get it twisted, though. Like, you can be my guy, and you can say something that's a little outlandish, and I'm going to say you said something a little outlandish.
Absolutely. That's part of, like, having a friendship, right? Is you can be...
I thought you were supposed to say my allure. Is that a little harsh? Is that a little strong for a couple guys in the morning? Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's 20.
Well, what I was going to say, actually, was that's part of... I was going to say that's part of being in a relationship.
You were going to say Montana.
No. I was going to say that's part of...
Stick to sports.
I was going to say that's part of having a relationship with DB is he's going to call you on stuff if you get a little out of pocket.
Yeah, it happens to me all the time.
Which is good.
By the way, I have a great cologne. It's called Allure.
That's why it's on the top of your head?
Yes. Yeah. It's fantastic. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing it currently.
All right. Well, I'm not going to sniff you yet. We'll wait till that's off camera.
Shout out to me.
Shout out to me and my dope cologne.
What'd you say?
Is it a bass lure?
What?
The fishing lure?
Oh. No, it's a lure. Not the lure.
You know what that sounds like?
No. But we're going back and forth last night, and I wasn't even really feeling very social. I was kind of a Krabby Patty. Did you think I was couching Nebraska's baseball talk by telling you that South Dakota State had won 10 in a row and had hit 30 home runs in that time span? Because I believe that to be something.
No, I do think it's something. It did feel,
especially in baseball.
It did feel a little bit like you were trying to make me go easier on Nebraska baseball. That's how it felt.
I feel you.
And my only point was, I mean, they hadn't beat,
and this was before they were even getting dusted.
Yeah,
I was just trying to say, like, South Dakota State's a good offensive team.
They are a good offensive
team. And they swept Omaha. Nebraska didn't do that.
My point was, if Nebraska baseball is the team that a lot of people were kind of trying to think they were, a potential at-large regional team, that's not a game you can lose.
Yeah, they're out.
Sure. Yeah. But people were trying to speak that into existence as recently as last week.
Maybe we ought to do something different other than Jackson Brockett.
Maybe.
Although it's not just his fault.
No, there's a lot of problems.
We'll get to more of them. 7:45. Michigan Lance, stay right there.
Hold on.
The listeners are chomping at the bit to hear from you. Back after this on Coffee and Cream.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes.
Michael, your question. Yeah. Michael Jordan played.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
I feel like I should say something.
Probably. It's a radio show.
Well, I'm still trying to get used to this whole bed music thing. Shane, like, you're supposed to point at me, or somebody's supposed to be in my IFB and like tell me go.
There is no IFB.
You don't say.
I mean, I think you asked me that before.
You asked me the same question last year, Eric.
See,
I love the like pause and then Eric.
He was disgusted.
He was
like,
he was so dismissive.
He was like, really, bro?
Yeah.
You're gonna ask me this?
The same question last year,
Eric.
Okay. Do you get the promotion every year?
You said maybe the fact that he hasn't been Americanized with how to handle media,
which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing.
It's a good thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Because you get honest answers out of him that you don't get out of, like, if an American player, let's say they ask Steph Curry that question, right? Mm-hmm. Who I think is more honest than a lot of people are, but
no bias.
Well, love him. Talk about man crushes.
So you put the other one on me. That wasn't self-admitted. That's different.
No, I'm an observational person.
Oh, okay. Deductive reasoning. It's Mr. Semantics.
Just because you don't admit it doesn't mean it's not true.
Denial.
It's a river in Egypt.
Yeah.
No, I think that if you give that question to a LeBron or like a Steph Curry, which LeBron
Although if I was going to pick a river, I would pick the Mekong.
Yeah, big Mekong guy?
Yeah, cool name.
I'm
like Mekong, Yukon.
I'm a more
reference, but a lot more cool animals in that river.
I'm a more Ganges type guy.
Really? You don't say.
A lot of people can't tell.
Oh.
No, but if you get that answer, if you get that question to
really,
that's out of pocket, Shane.
Really?
Come on.
Oh, that's out of Africa.
Come on.
Really?
Isn't that a movie?
Somebody, I don't know.
What are we doing here?
I have no idea, but somebody just got fired. What's her name?
Who did?
Covers ESPN for baseball, 13 years. She cussed at the lady from Fox. She called her out of pocket, and they fired her.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, she went to the dreaded word that I don't think most people use in their normal day-to-day life. The C word.
Yeah.
She called her that.
That's that makes sense.
Yeah, and I guess it was caught on audio, or
yeah, that's not great.
Is that a fireable offense?
I mean, anything's a fireable offense if you try hard enough.
It didn't seem like it.
She called her a cad?
Well, depends.
Is
that an Urban Dictionary?
I'm not going to comment. I'm going to go back to my Giannis thing here. Just pretend like the rest of this conversation isn't happening.
I don't even know what he's doing.
You asked me the
Shane?
same question last year.
Yeah, I don't think any of us ever do. But if you give that same question to a LeBron or a Steph, you're going to get something to the effect of, you're going to get a non-answer answer that says, obviously we're disappointed that the season didn't end the way we wanted it to, but we're still really proud of our accomplishments and whatever, and I'll ride with this team and blah, 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 right? That's the answer you get from American stars. Whereas I think you actually got a good answer out of Giannis for the most part, right? Because we disagree that there's not any failure in sports.
Yeah.
But I don't think failure in sports is often what other people think it is. And even if we're not talking about, I know we got on kind of playoff success or failure in the last segment, but to me, failure in sports is like quitting. Like if you just don't.
Oh, you're going like super old school.
Well, I'm thinking like more philosophical.
Well, you tried your best.
Yeah.
I want to be able to lay my head down at night and know I laid it on the line.
Yeah, I mean it's called old school, call it whatever you want, but I think it's a
best practices.
Yeah, it's a philosophical type thing, right? Because that's what sports ultimately. I know we take it super seriously at the collegiate and professional level and to high school level as well, as although I think there's more teaching at the high school level than there is at some of the higher levels. But we take our sports super seriously in the results and kind of forget that the point is, the point of sports is to help make us better people.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It is?
I think so.
Wait, for who?
For the players.
So you think they play sports to be better people?
I don't think that's why they play sports. I think that's why sports are important.
Interesting. I don't know if I'm vibing.
I'll give my examples here.
Okay.
The reason I think sports matter, right? The reason I think they're important to our society is not the wins and losses and whatever. Obviously, there's a sense of competition that a lot of people feel that sports help satisfy that, right?
Okay.
But in terms of bigger picture things, the ability to persevere, to learn your limits in terms of what you can push yourself to, in terms of what you're willing to do, what you're willing to overcome, putting yourself in difficult situations. What's the thing you always say? When you put pressure on somebody, the truth comes out.
Yeah.
When you squeeze them.
That's my egg theory.
When you squeeze them, whatever's
Whatever's
inside
in
comes
you
out.
is what comes out, yeah.
Sports squeezes you.
Yeah.
In a way that you can find out what's inside in a relatively low-stakes environment. This isn't war, right? In war squeezes you too, but it's life and death. Sports squeezes you, and you can actually learn from that because your life's not on the line for the most part, right?
I understand.
And so,
unless you're playing soccer, maybe some overseas countries or something.
Or I was thinking DeMar Hamlin, but that's
yeah,
you know what I mean.
I understand.
For the most part,
by the way, to get cleared so quick,
I was really uncomfortable with that. Honestly, unless I'm not a doctor, I'm not whatever, but just the idea of him playing football again made me really uncomfortable.
Yeah, and he's like all in. Imagine what courage that takes.
Well, that's what I mean, though, right? In what other area would he have the opportunity to display or learn that about himself, right? To me, that's why sports matter. Maybe that's not why we play them. Maybe that's not why we watch them or follow them. But in the grand scheme of things, that is
probably low key what we gravitate towards too.
We
kind of go vicariously through
the stories.
Those sports,
We gravitate towards the motivational, the inspirational, all of those things, right? Can you imagine what it's going to look like the first time DeMar Hamlin steps back on a football field?
Yeah.
There's going to be tears of joy and inspiration and whatever. So when sports fails is when it fails to capture those things on a grand scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's still failure in moments and games and results. But in my mind, sports only truly fails when we lose sight of why it matters.
That's awful deep on a Thursday, but I'm kind of vibing now.
Well, I had to explain myself because we weren't on the same page. Like you didn't understand what I was saying.
I still think at first blush that's deeper than most people within their conscience.
Sure. But if you dig into it, I think that's in there for most people.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what Giannis was getting at.
That's not just digging. That's like
excavating.
That's like an excavation, bro.
I think that's what Giannis was getting at, though, because he's talking about putting food on his table and taking care of his family and things like that. He's talking about the deeper things, right? So I think that's where Giannis's headspace was at when he's answering that question. Because you have to remember, this is a guy that was not just like American poor, was like poor,
yeah,
like impoverished.
I still think that movie is streaming on Disney.
Oh, the Antetokounmpo's movie? Yeah, I haven't watched it yet.
I haven't either.
But if you know his story at all, you can kind of see.
Don't ask that guy that question.
Nothing in his life now is failure. Nothing at all. You know, he talked about thinking about retiring a few years ago. It's because he's already been the most successful that he could ever imagine being. Right? Yeah. Like that's a bad question to ask that guy. That's what you said. And that's a really good way to put it. Because he doesn't view things the same way we do because he hasn't been brought up in the American sports system the way we do.
Yeah, you'd get a vastly different. So people still use LeBron's ratio of finals to wins as a way to not validate him.
Right.
And he's like, what? Like
he's been in a finals like half of his career.
Yeah.
Basically.
Is that good?
It's pretty good. The chances of him making a finals are better than the chance that any given Russell Westbrook shot will go in.
Let me ask you something since we're talking about the portal. We were talking about the portal in the first segment, and I was talking about Dickerson and close to home, Nebraska. And we kind of previewed this yesterday morning because I don't think it's going to be near as many people leaving Nebraska as like maybe we thought. And we know he's got to get the numbers, but I think part of it is, and I know some of these guys will be open. He would probably allow to come back, right? Like there'll be some guys where he's just going to be like,
yeah.
But there'll be some where it'll be a two-way swing, right? Do you view people seeking other opportunities, sometimes sometimes they go get it, as a microcosm of like where life is in terms of that same failure talk? Do you look at is it another, because I think too often we pick that low-hanging fruit, which is never good because it I know it's easy to pick, but it's closest to the dirt.
I mean, I think you can't. I think it's bad to generalize in that situation about what's success and what's failure based on the portal. I don't
because I would think part of that would be not giving up.
Yes,
but we may look at it in the short term as, oh man, you quit. But when you're still chasing,
yes, so that's a very myopic fan view is, oh, you quit on my team, right? You quit on what I wanted for you. That's not what sports is about necessarily.
But the weird thing is a lot of times that's how fans think. It's always their perspective.
It is, and I get it, right? Because that's the only perspective you have. You don't have the perspective of I'm the student athlete or I'm the coach or I'm whoever, right? But I think it's very specific to each individual decision. Because some of them, they probably are giving up on their current situation, but some of them are reading the tea leaves and being like, hey, this is what my goal is. It's better served if I move on. Just the same way as when like adults change jobs. My goals are better served if I move on sometimes.
No, I'm with you. All right. Moments with Ravi. I feel like we should be painting by numbers and you should have a different hairstyle. As deep coming up, Mitch Sherman from The Athletic next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Welcome back. Coffee and Cream live from H&H Chevrolet Studios at HVC. It's kind of weird that with the blinds open, like people just kind of loiter. I don't know if they want in.
Yeah. They're just kind of wandering around.
But you know, sometimes like people are nice and they like drop stuff off, but sometimes it could get kind of, man, that take you out. What? You mad?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I don't know.
We're just talking.
Yeah.
Are you mad? I don't know.
People.
I don't know what they want, so I just don't want to open the door.
Oh, that's all. I'm that way about my house too.
Yeah, you have 4 weird dogs though, so
that's true. Yeah, most people, if they're not supposed to be there, they would walk away pretty quickly.
You mad?
I read a deal yesterday. While I was changing the teams on my athletic account. Speaking of which, do we have Mitch yet, Shane?
He's here. Let's bring him in.
Well, way to produce, bud. It just said coming up Mitch Sherman, and we're talking. You're supposed to say Mitch is here. Like, is this your first rodeo?
You asked me the same question last year.
See,
Eric.
here he goes. Eric. Okay, that's going to be his shtick this morning as we welcome in one of my favorites from the Athletic, Mitch Sherman. Mitch, sorry about that. Sometimes I have a hard time getting my producer to produce. I apologize.
I'm good just listening to you guys. So you can keep going.
Oh, man, we just kind of go off in our own world. Man, how are things? Are you struggling to keep up, or did you think portaling would be more difficult after the first couple of days? Because it hasn't been ridiculous. At least I don't think.
It was a little quiet to get started. I thought there would be more on Monday, but then things got going the last couple of days, and it's about at the pace that I expected maybe from the beginning of the week. I think we'll see a few more, but I don't think it's going to be a mass exodus. Never thought that. I don't think we're going to be looking at it on Sunday or Monday, and some of the names might not trickle out until Monday. It can take a day or so after a player enters the portal before it becomes visible in the actual portal. And sometimes the news leaks out early, like it did with Logan. I felt a little bad for Logan. And actually he hasn't even, I don't believe, gone on social media yet and announced it, but he's in the portal. So at that point, I think it's fair game to go ahead and talk about it and make the announcement for him. Clearly he doesn't care too much about that, but he's somebody who's been super loyal to Nebraska. So, it's good for him to be able to do that on his own terms to announce his departure. There'll be some more. I don't think you're going to look at it on Monday or Tuesday when the dust settles and say, okay, I know what the 85 are going to be. So some of the departures, I think we'll probably find out about them in like June and July, maybe even as late as like Big Ten media days where Matt Rule comes in like he did at the start of spring practice and says, okay, this guy and this guy and this guy.
They're like, hey, Carney, wait, what?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They're not with us. And those may be the players who stay on scholarship but just aren't playing football anymore. And you can go through the roster and there's a couple of those that aren't too difficult to identify.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's pretty perceptive too. You obviously have a good pulse because I agree with you on Smothers wholeheartedly. And I think he's one of the guys that I had in mind yesterday. I was talking to Ravi. We were just obviously the Colorado thing is getting a lot of run, and we talked to Brian Howell yesterday, who's been on that beat for a while. And I said, the weird thing about Nebraska right now is I don't think a lot of people are chomping at the bit to leave, like actively thinking, hey, you know what? I really want to get out of here. I think with a lot of the guys early, like let's say a Smothers or a Wynn, because Wynn surprised me a little bit. It's a two-way street, right? It's like, Wynn may be thinking, well, I mean, I want the bulk of the snaps, or if we're really going to do these playing 6 guys, or I want to test my market value. And, Coach Rule may or may not say, or Coach White, hey, see what's out there. I want you happy. If it's not good, come on back. We'll figure it out. I think that's like a Smothers deal too, right? I mean, Logan could maybe even want to change positions, but
yeah.
If you want what's best for a guy, it's like, hey, see what's out there. If not, come back and see me. I could see that with the environment they've got set up at Nebraska, that would be the case more than not.
That's definitely the case with Logan. He has an opportunity. The door is not shut on him. Now, I mean, he wants to play.
Yeah.
So he's going to look, and I know that as soon as the news trickled out that he was going in the portal, and then when he showed up in the portal, he was busy, and he was hearing from schools, and he's probably going to find an opportunity closer to home in Alabama for him, somewhere in the South. But if it's not something that he likes, he left the Nebraska program, or he left, like physically or figuratively left Matt Rule's office with the option to be able to come back and be something in this Nebraska system. So that tells you how they feel about Logan, even not being able to see him compete physically in all of the time that this coaching staff has been here. They like something about his attitude and what he brings to the team. And I know that they appreciate the loyalty that he's shown in staying at Nebraska for 7 semesters through, and he's graduating on May 20th, which, great accomplishment for somebody who plays football to be able to do that as an early enrollee and then do it in 3.5 years. Yeah. So all of the intangibles and the pieces that you look for in a player are there with him. They feel like they would be just a better football organization if he's still a part of who they are, but they want him to be able to have an opportunity. And if he finds that in the South, where his parents don't have to drive 1,300 miles to be able to see him play or be with him on the weekends, then that would be the better situation or a good situation for him. I'm not sure with Wynn. I mean, he's a 6th-year guy. Yeah. And I think for 6th-year guys, like Casey Thompson, the urgency is there. And I think Stephon Wynn is probably going to go find a place where he knows he's going to be on the field a lot.
And it'll be easy, I think, for him to find a home just because he'll be, I think, highly coveted. When you're looking at
defensive linemen are,
yeah. And it's weird because we think the transition is a lot easier for D line than O line, but I think it's you play so many more offensive linemen. You think just by sheer volume, you could stumble into some quality offensive linemen, but man, Mitch, and you kind of got the sense from Coach Rule that they're just not super confident that the portal is a great place to find offensive linemen.
Yeah, I mean, and I think part of it also is that it's so competitive for offensive linemen. I mean, just in recruiting and with NIL, they thought they had Walter Rouse from Stanford in the winter, and that went sour on them. It remains to be seen what's going to happen with Jacob Hood from Georgia, who's a big, huge guy and physically impressive, and he was touted as a recruit, but he's got to be healthy and he's got some hurdles to overcome to get to that point. So offensive linemen, I think, are just there's probably some similar characteristics and situations going on with D linemen. Those big guys, it's just hard to find really good ones that don't have something that's holding them back or, some reason why it makes them very difficult to be able to get. So it sounds like, as you set out at the beginning, I think, of any offseason, especially if you're in this situation Nebraska's in now with a new coaching staff where you're maybe thin at both of those positions, it sounds like, okay, we're going to go target 2 offensive linemen, 2 defensive linemen. Let's do this. Let's get it done. That's a lot easier said than done. Nebraska hasn't had a lot of success. They found guys, but they haven't had a lot of success in finding guys in the portal at the line of scrimmage who then come in and impact the team right away.
Mitch, as we look at kind of Nebraska's roster post spring game, there's some rooms that are a little crowded. Where are you kind of expecting, not names specifically, but maybe position groups that you expect to see some of the attrition into the portal?
The secondary? I mean,
it's got to be, right?
Yeah. Including the guys that I've got listed, on my little fake roster that I made.
What's that look like, Mitch? Let's walk through your fake roster. I kind of like that.
I can pull it up on my screen right here.
That's so awesome.
Including the guys that I have listed as rovers, which is mainly the guys that played nickel last year.
Yeah.
I think I have 22 right now after yesterday's developments. So yesterday, Braxton Clark went into the portal as a DB. So they're down 1 from last week. But I mean, the Rovers, Gifford, Stenger, and Javen Wright, and then 19 guys who play corner or safety. And this is just scholarship players, of course. Right. So there's even more than that. Because there's other DBs who aren't on scholarship, like Phelan Sanford, who we're going to factor somewhere in the playing rotation, I think. And he just makes plays whenever he's on the field. Sanford does, whether he's 4th string or whatever, special teams. There's definitely some room there to cut a little bit of fat. And, it's hard for me. I don't know who it's going to be. I mean, I can make a guess, but that's not really fair to those guys for me.
No, sure. Yeah.
You can look and see, okay, who's been around for a long time and hasn't really been able to get on the field, whether it's because of injuries or, just development and, or, maybe who's taken it down, a step down a notch from 2022 to 2023 based on where we saw them placed in the spring game on Saturday. And you can kind of get a guess of who might go. It's not going to be most likely the new guys, the guys who are coming in this summer. They've got spots that are set. If you're a returning starter,
so that would be like Sincere, Nathan, DeAndre Barnes, Boodle.
Yeah, the guys who are coming in. Yeah, sure. Ramir Stewart is a safety. Ethan Nation, you mentioned. Corey Collier. He was here this spring as a transfer from Florida. But
so technically, Collier's a sophomore, right?
I think that's right. Yeah, I think he's got 3 years. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I mean, selfishly, I'm always paying attention to what's happening with Nebraska's secondary depth chart.
For sure. So,
Mitch, as you're looking at this thing, and we're talking about D line, how much of the Wallens and the Tagaloas and the AJ Rollins do you think there can be where this staff has kind of developed the reputation of? I know you may count this as these kind of numbers, but you never know with us because we're going to maximize this roster. Like that in itself will be hard to cap because it seems pretty fluid with guys able to do multiple things.
I think the biggest difference, like if you would have talked to me or a lot of people who cover the team a week ago compared to now in talking about how this team is going to look in 2023, I think there was a lot of belief that, well, it's mainly going to be the same guys. I mean, yeah, you're going to add in a Jeff Sims or an MJ Sherman or, some of these, a transfer here or there who is going to impact this roster. But really, Matt Rule and his staff are going to have to find a way to make do for the most part with what Nebraska had in 2022. That I might have said that a week ago. And now I look at it and I go, well, at some positions, yes. At the defensive line, no.
Right.
That's a place where they have made a transformation and done it fast. And I think that's Terrence Knighton. I think that's Rob Dvorak. I think that's Tony White and his system. And it's amazing how quickly they've put pieces in place who fit what they want to do. I mean, they I think a little bit got kind of fortunate in the guys that they recruited and the guys that they had already been recruiting when White got on this staff. And then also I think a lot of it was strategy. It was like, okay, from the day that he got there and they hit the ground running, it's like we need to target this kind of a player and this kind of a player and this kind of a player. And as an observer, I'm not sure that I truly recognized what they were doing and how strategic they were in the kind of players that they were recruiting for that front 6 or 7 on defense until we saw those guys actually doing something and operating that system on Saturday, because all of them seem to fit it really well. And they're not big guys, but I'm talking about Sherman and Prince Will and Maverick Noonan and Cam Lenhart. And you start looking at the pieces that they've got, and then they bring AJ Rollins over from offense, and they bring Brody Tagaloa over from offense, and the guys that they have coming in. You have Chief Borders, who we didn't see as much, but by all accounts, he's had a good offseason. Elijah Judy in the middle. All of these guys really seem to fit that attacking, aggressive, smaller. Around them, they're big right in the middle of the front on the defense, with a Ty Robinson or a Ruquan Buckley, Hutmacher, and Judy fits that position. But then all around those guys, it's these fast, athletic, mobile, attacking from all angles kind of players, and they've got a lot all of a sudden who can do that.
Remember early in the spring, so there's 2 positions I think that's happened. So I think like in February where we were kind of panicking. Was D-line, and I'm taking O-line out of it, right? Was D-line, and then I think tight ends, right? Because it was like, gosh, look at what's going on in the tight end room. Now, I think Gilbert was a little underwhelming on Saturday, but I think he's kind of a proven commodity when he's on the field. I think people are happy about Fedoni. Applegate isn't healthy. They like Bonner, but he won't be just a tight end. They were able to steal Smith Flores from Iowa, and I think Androff is still there. So when you look at tight ends, is there a way that the tight end room can offset what looks like a little uncertainty at the wideout spot?
Well, you got Nate Borkature, who I understand is not on.
I saying you forgot your favorite one.
Well, he needs to be on scholarship.
Right. And I think they know that, and I think he will be. And that's why I think the numbers won't entirely be ironed out next week, because there's going to be, they may add a piece or two from the portal, and then you got a guy like a Nate Borkature or a John Bullock, who they're probably going to put on scholarship if those guys are really running with the ones in the way that it seems that they are. But Borkature is like a safety valve right now because he is a known, what you have with him. And you saw that on the first series of the scrimmage. Like
he's way better than we think.
Oh,
at least I think.
It's those guys from Aurora. Like they're all over.
Yeah, Austin Allen, Sherman. I watched him throw a baseball the other day on social media, and I was like, "Oh, Baylor, you look good."
Some of those baseball guys didn't look as natural throwing.
No, Farabella was struggling.
I want to know what that was like when those guys they're like pretty much all the same age, or at least close to it. I mean, you had Austin Allen and Sherman and the Borkatures. It's not just one. There's more than one Borkature running around out there, and that's. I mean, there's no wonder they've been a Class B powerhouse for a while. But look, we didn't see Fedoni and Eric Gilbert at their peak performance levels or even close to it on Saturday. Considering that those guys have been in school for a combined 5 football seasons, and you really have like a little chunk of 1 year in 2020 with Gilbert at LSU.
Yeah, no juniors or seniors on the scholarship tight end level.
Yeah, those two guys have a lot to give, a ton athletically. Like as a duo, they're off the charts, but that's not what we saw on Saturday. I mean, Gilbert, I think, will be okay when the lights come on and he's more comfortable in this scheme. And Fedoni just needs time. I mean, he's got to be rusty, and you could still see it. He was. So give them some time, and I think they'll develop as the season goes on into a good duo. But Borkature is going to be there, and if he's like, if they're in a, if they start one tight end, like if the set that they call on the first play of the Minnesota game is one tight end, it's probably going to be Nate Borkature, and I think you'll see a lot of Fedoni, and I think you'll see Gilbert as he gets comfortable. The good thing about Gilbert is that he looks like he's in shape, and he looks really, really good. So I'd be more concerned.
Calmed down a ton. He looks good.
I'd have been more concerned about him if, let's say he made 5 catches for 72 yards, but he didn't look like he was in great shape. There was the opposite that happened. He dropped a couple passes, but he looked good, and I think that's the more important thing.
So they have 2 offers to in-state tight ends. Still a need for you?
Yeah, I mean, you got Ian Flint, who just committed this week, and they've been on him for a while, so they obviously like what they see with him. He was one of the first guys down in Texas, who was banging the drum about Matt Rule and his staff and how well respected they are down there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, of course, Carter Nelson is a huge priority. And you saw him walking around that was the first time I've seen him up close in person, and saw him walking around.
Is that optics or ability, right? Because you got he and Ingerson, right, that have the 2 in-state offers.
Yeah, right. The Papillion.
Is that optics or like must-have with how he's ranked, or you like the way that he plays watching?
Well, I haven't watched him play, other than seeing some highlights. So that may be a priority to get to Ainsworth, or, look at their schedule in the fall and find out. I'm sure they play a lot of close games to us out here in West Omaha. But I want to see him play.
It might be closer to go over to Papillion.
It might be. You're right. But no, I think it's both. It's optics because, Matt Rule's lost a few battles now in recruiting.
Yeah.
And that's expected. It was really interesting to hear him say a couple of weeks ago about how the players that really mean a lot to him are the guys on the team who are buying in before
they believe in him,
they have a reason to, and the recruits who commit to him before he buys in. I think, it's really rare to hear Matt Rule talk to his players and recruits through the media. I don't think he generally likes to do that. I think he likes to talk to them face to face. He's really sophisticated as a communicator in that way. But that was one instance right there where I think he wanted people to hear that. It really means a lot to me for players to commit to us before we've proven that we're going to get it done on the field. And that shows that they have faith. And so it's understandable in light of that they've lost some battles in recruiting. But this is a big one with Carter Nelson, where I think that it's important for Nebraska in just the way that things look as they're getting off the ground here in recruiting for him to find a way to win that. And it's not going to be easy. I mean, kid's got Georgia, Alabama, Notre Dame, everybody wants him. So, if they lose it, it's not like the sky's falling, but you really want that. You really, really want to win that battle, in part for optics, but also because of the position that he plays and how good he can be in the Nebraska offense.
Mitch, we've got about 90 seconds here. How surprised are you coming out of spring that the wide receivers might be the biggest area of concern in terms of position group?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's been some attrition there, and Marcus Washington is the only guy left who on scholarship who finished the season on the roster last year. Now, I mean, you have Xavier and Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, who were on the team at some point in 2022, but obviously didn't finish the season on the roster, didn't start the season on the roster in the case of Betts. So that means there's a lot of work that needed to be done this offseason. There's a learning curve. Billy Kemp's going to be solid. Washington's going to be solid. And then, Betts got hurt in the spring game. I think, he's going to be good. And then they got to find some guys. And I don't know that there's a true freshman among that group who's ready to go. So maybe they look in the portal, maybe they just kind of fill things in because they've got tight ends who can really catch the ball. Bonner as a tight end, flex hybrid receiver, fullback, whatever running, he can play every position on the field. He helps you because he's got experience at playing receiver, at different levels. So I think they'll be okay, but they might find somebody there. And then they have some decent walk-ons. Ty Hahn can be a good player, I think.
You have real quick, Mitch, you have a coaching MVP for the spring?
Tony White.
Good call. Mitch?
That's the right answer, Mitch.
That's fantastic. Good stuff. Appreciate it, man. Talk to you in 2.
All right. Thanks, guys.
That's Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. I didn't bait him into that.
No, but I knew what answer you wanted to hear.
But there's another coach he brought up we're going to talk about next, and he coaches D-line on Coffee and Cream.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes.
Yeah, you see that at Indy? How'd you know that?
Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Yeah, you see that at Indy? How'd you know that?
It's hard. It's just hard doing the little things, isn't it? I just ask just for a couple things, man.
You don't ask a lot.
No. Fudge. HBO, man, help a brother out. Welcome back to Coffee and Cream.
No, it's just called Max now.
Man, we are live from H&H Studios.
I won't get there in a bad humor, period.
All right. And I hadn't talked to Mitch. Now, granted, Mitch hopefully listens to the show, so I think he knows.
Well, he's a smart guy.
He knows kind of how I feel about Tony White, but he certainly wouldn't appease me.
No.
Right? Like, he's plenty smart on his own and an independent thinker. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad he thinks that. But I'm going to make a case because I said this a month ago after his presser,
mm-hmm.
and he just was on social media yesterday because they were spotlighting him being chosen in the draft,
mm-hmm.
3rd round,
by
the Broncos, and it was Terrence Knighton,
right? Pot roast.
And I said something at the time, and I remember I got 2 DMs asking me if I was trying to stir the pot.
Okay.
Because casually I said, Knighton was speaking. It was his second to last time he addressed the media.
Mm-hmm.
And Knighton was speaking, and I said, man, that doesn't seem like a guy that they can keep long, which is why I think Mark Phillips, he has a GA helping him out that came over. That's really, really good too.
Yeah.
Because this was right after the coaches clinic.
Mm-hmm.
And we were having this segment about because Coop spoke right before that. So I was asking Knight, and I was like, hey, I love these fronts, but, how are you marrying coverages and who goes first, right? Because a lot of people want to play fronts, but they're not sure what to play behind it. And he was just joking with me because it's like the second question I asked or something. He's like, what position you coach again? And I go, well, I know, like, I'm supposed to be an offensive guy, and those guys don't know. They just got here.
Yeah.
But I coach defense for a living and have for
a while.
Yeah, double-digit years, right? So I guess I started listening, and then I was downstairs, and I listened to Coach White's segment, and I was like, gosh, I'd like to play that in the field, right? There's a lot of cool stuff. And I'm like, I just don't think that they can keep him very long. But he's a coach rule guy. He got him at Temple. Like, they go way back. So there is loyalty.
Sure.
And he doesn't need like a huge, like, I'm not in the guy's pocketbook or his bank account, but I don't think it would be about money.
Probably not. With a lot of guys
So maybe, but he will be highly, highly sought after. So if you don't give the MVP to Coach White, it certainly goes to Coach Knighton, because you don't get Wallen and Tagovailoa and AJ Rollins and those guys without being able to teach D-line. His clinic segment was so good. They were using clips, and I asked him a question, and he said, hey, it wasn't even D-line related. It was outside linebackers. And he's like, hey, it's a good job by, now granted, he's an all-pro. It was Burns, who just had surgery, by the way. Hopefully he'll be ready to go. He goes, hey, it's a good job by Burns not being influenced here. He's going to set the edge. And I asked, well, how do you know that that's not a reach block? Like, that's a tough read, because there was a lateral step, so he could be getting reached.
Right.
And he's like, no, he's like, what we do is, there's so much film study. This is a job. We know when they put a third string quarterback in to play tight end, this isn't run block. They're trying to influence to do something different, even though there was like orbit motion behind Burns.
Yeah.
So it would have been easy to take the eye candy and to hop outside and give up the run inside as the edge setter. But he's like, that's what film study's for. That's why I like to teach my guys when they split on the double. And then he just went into this vernacular, and I was like, we're in good shape.
Yeah.
But because he had command of the whole defense.
Right.
There are so few, and no disrespect to D-line guys out here, right? Because some guys can dabble. But usually D-line guys just know D-line.
Yeah, they're a little tunnel vision on their group, right?
And I'm like, this guy is super smart, like way smart, and he's a technician,
right? Which is a great combination.
Well, you can develop, right?
Yes. Well, so so a couple questions off of what you've been saying here. Number one, and I was going to ask Mitch this, but our conversation went in a different direction, which is totally okay. But I wanted to ask how much of what we saw from Prince Will and from Cam and from Maverick is that those guys are better prospects coming in than some of the guys that they've had in years past, or how much of it is the being coached up by Coach Knighton and Coach White and those guys and being put in positions and being taught how to be successful early?
I think it's more the latter.
I do too, because they've gotten good recruits before.
Yeah, and I remember saying something like, full disclosure, I was coming back from a practice or something, and I was like, man, I like how Coach Dvorak was like stealing reps with his guys. So when real plays were going, he's coaching his guys on off to the side, because he's got some other guys that are on the field, and there's this marriage that has to happen as a coaching staff, and everybody goes through it. Football, right? Do we coach on the fly? Do we want rapid fire? Do we want reps? Do we coach it in the film room? Do we want to correct it on the field? Like, there's always this process that you have to go through as a staff, right? Coach Lamanji just the other day said, hey, you know what? I want better tempo in practice. I want to do this defensively. Like, when I step in, I'll step in. But if not, I want to get rolling. I want better tempo. That lets us know, okay, hey, listen, stop coaching so much on the fly.
Right.
Save it. That's what film will be for, right?
Yeah.
So And it's a process, right? You have to get a feel for how your team can handle it. But when I watched him, I was like, he can flat out teach.
Yeah.
And you took 2 tight ends in an off season and you're making them D linemen.
And it looks like they're going to play. Because a lot of time these position changes don't
play enough to where
be in the
a real D lineman is looking to leave.
Yeah. I mean, and play enough where it's, hey, we can rotate 8 guys here.
And you know the difference between Cam and Princewell. One guy can play inside, playing a 4 or 5, and the other guy can play as an edge setter, and you can see that going in, right?
Which I think is important because I think edge guys you kind of expect to be able to play earlier, even if it's situationally, because, hey, it's just get off the quarterback, right? Whereas if you're an inside D lineman, I think there's a little more to it. I think it's a little more complicated in terms of what your job actually is, depending on what's being asked of you in the scheme. But on edge guys, you can situationally get young guys on the field, right? Even if they don't totally know what's going on.
Correct.
You can situationally get them on the field. And so here was my other question in between Knighton and Coach White here. Because you said, I don't know if they can keep Coach Knighton very long. And I tend to agree if he's as good as it seems he is.
He will be highly, but again,
you've got
the caveat is the loyalty.
Here's my question, though, okay? If Tony White is as good as we think he is, what are the chances that he becomes a head coach somewhere and Knighton's your new DC?
You know that? I don't know.
That's not a crazy scenario, right?
Let's win some games.
No, sure.
But if I'm entertaining it, I don't know. He likes it here.
That's Coach White does?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And
but most guys want to be head coaches at some point.
Correct.
Most guys.
Some.
Especially coordinators. A lot of coordinators want to be a head coach.
But here's the deal with Coach White is his personality. I talked about this segment during his clinic where he had a thankful page where he was thankful to other coaches that had influenced how he got to where he was.
Sure.
And how he came to the high school one day and he was talking about his level of appreciation for having coached through COVID and the pandemic and what was going on with George Floyd and things around the country where he had to really bring culture and love on his guys to get them to have the transformation that they did at Syracuse. And maybe I hear what I want to hear, full disclosure.
Sure.
But he seemed like a guy that if it goes well, would be a good fit here,
like long term.
Yep.
Interesting.
And there's only a couple guys that I don't see as long termers.
Sure. And Knighton has nothing to do with not being a Nebraska guy. It's more to do with
and Knighton isn't one of those guys I couldn't see being a long termer.
Right. But with his ability, you could see how hard it would be to keep him.
Correct.
That makes sense.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And also Coach Rule, you have to imagine wants his guys to succeed, even if it's not with him.
Yeah.
He seems like one of those guys that's like, hey, you got a great opportunity to be a DC, Coach Knighton. Go do what's best for you. That's the mentorship, right?
Yeah, it'd be hard though.
Sure.
I could love you and want the best for you, but want to keep
Still
you
want
close
to
to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, I know you could take that job over there at radio.
Why don't you come on over
Stay
here?
right here. We'll talk NFL draft coming up next. That's Coffee and Cream.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back. Coffee and Cream in the morning. Ravi, Lulla, just kind of holding it down. He's almost a permanent resident. We could be like
a Vegas residency. I just kind of live there.
Yeah, you're just kind of here, and so we appreciate it. Shane, do we have him?
Not yet.
All right, well, we're waiting on Brian Edwards to see if we can make some of these fine folks some money. It's a shame that I wasn't playing with all my off-the-wall predictions.
I know.
A lot of good plus money the last couple of days.
You could have made a little coin there.
I'm just shooting the breeze, watching it go by. It's easy to talk when you don't have any skin in the game.
It is. It's like, oh man, my record's great. It's like, well, put some money on it. See what the record is.
But here's the thing though. A couple of those I was not afraid to go out on a limb on with the Panthers and the Kraken. Shane, are you worried about your Avs or no?
No, I'm not worried. I have faith.
You should be a little worried.
Oh no, man!
You should be a little.
It's not like you didn't give up 15 shots in the first period last night. I was like, "What?"
Well,
it is a little worried.
It is a different team than it was last year. I mean, because you could look at it this way:
your depth,
they've done this before, and Brian's just logging in now. He'll be here in a second.
Okay.
But they've done this before, but it is a different team that they've had last year. So can they do it? Yes. Will they do it? Probably not.
Oh, Denny Downer. You're not vibing with your Lanch?
No, but you want to get to Brian Edwards here?
Yeah, let's get to be.
Now, Vegas insider, senior handicapper, and fan of the cold Budweiser bottles, Brian Edwards.
It's got to be touchdown.
Brian Edwards.
I don't really love it.
Brian Edwards.
The way they're using the cream cheese to butter the bagel.
Brian Edwards.
I'm going with the cowgirl.
Here is Brian Edwards.
One of the funnier segments that we've got rolling from MajorWager.com. He's at BrianEdwardsSports.com's senior handicapper, even though he's not very old. Senior just means he's experienced. Doesn't have anything to do with age, baby. As we welcome in Brian Edwards on his Thursday time slot. B, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, gentlemen. Not as good as Jimmy Butler, but I am well.
Well, you're on your A game today because no audio. Like you didn't hit your mute button. Like you're
right.
smiling and laughing already, man. How about your guy? I feel like because Ravi, he's not a Trae Young guy, but in the moment we could appreciate him just going super soup coolers on the Celtics the other night. Did you see that coming?
You know, it was probably my heart talking, but I did grab when we were down like, I don't know, 11 or 12, like 7 or 8 minutes left. I grabbed plus 14.5 live and some plus 720 live. I really was just grabbing the plus 14.5, but then I saw the plus 720 sitting there and I was like, I can go a quarter unit on that just for fun. And then I probably would have hedged back, but they took the live line off of like four minutes or so. So it worked out. But no, I didn't really see it coming. I mean, I guess I did, but I didn't. That was
You got to be on it to hit the live line. Like, are you just up and rolling like as it's going? Because those last like 30 seconds.
Well, they a lot of times they'll take it off with like 3 minutes left, but I mean, you get roller coaster opportunities when you're following the live line. Like I wasn't really last night because I could barely keep my eyes open. But
sleepy.
the night, I was sleepy. The night before though, I mean that was the early game though. The Hawks for the early game, so I was kind of at my desk and kind of all over the live lines. Man, Trey got hot, didn't he? But the Celtics kind of underestimated them, and but what
that was not. So there were two things so far this series: the fact that Milwaukee never called timeout when the Heat made the run the other night, right? Just let that thing happen, and then Mazzulla, I have no idea what he was doing down the stretch with Boston the other night against the Hawks.
I mean, Eric Spoelstra and the Heat sure didn't do that in the series last year. I'm talking not the play-in tournament. I'm talking about playoff series last year. Yeah, you got to get it out of Trey's hands, period. End of story. I mean, like even the tying three, he's wide open. I mean, granted they're running pick and roll, but I mean, how the hell's that happen? I mean, come on, what are you doing?
All right, where are we starting? You like a total? Is it your Hawks? Are they involved?
No, I'm gonna just go with the over tonight. And I looked this up. Well, first off, the over's cashed in 3 straight in this series, and the combined scores in games 3 and 4 in Atlanta were 252 and 250. But I looked this up last night. So Atlanta, now they've had a lot of unders in their last 16 home games, but most of them were like mid 240s, high 240s. So I went all the way back. I was counting the unders. The Hawks have had at least 235 combined points in 16 consecutive home games. So I'm going to go over 231.5. I'm also going to do Boston's team total in the first half over. Now, I saw one book was 60.5 last night. Another was 61. Another one was 61.5. But so game 1, the Celtics had 74 at halftime. Game 2 was their lowest one. They only had 61. Game 3, they had 67 at the break. Games 4 and 5, they had 65 and 66 respectively. So they've had at least 65 in 4 of the 5 games and 61 in all of them. So I'm going to go Celtics team total over in the first half. But my big one is really the over 232 or maybe 232.5 for the game. I like it over. And I'm not against the Celtics tonight. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I hope my Hawks went outright, but the overs, those 2 overs are what I really like.
B, do you have any hesitation when you're seeing these trends that lead you to believe, the over with 16 straight over that number for the Hawks, or the Celtics getting over the first half total number pretty much every game? Do you have any hesitation? It's like, hey, why are these numbers so low if the trends are telling me something else?
I have hesitation when they really shift the spreads, but they're not really doing this here. And you know what? They didn't do it in the Milwaukee-Miami series, and I was late to the party, but I did have last night's over that was, an easy over. I mean, all those Miami-Milwaukee overs were in that, 16.5 now they finally got it up to like 219.5, 220 last night. But so looking at the totals so far on this series for Boston Atlanta, it's been 232, 230.5, 229, 231, 231.5, and 230.5. So tonight 232, that is tied for the highest, but that was game 1. But they haven't been varying them very much. And then another one, I wasn't late to the party on this one for Knicks Heat. I was on that under. I think I got 3 of them, and they hit all 5. Now last night was super duper lucky. I don't know if y'all were cognizant of it, but that when they ran the clock out the last 2 possessions, it was at 2:01, and I had under 202.5, and it was trending over the whole game.
That's
that one was
why everybody raises their eyebrows sometimes. It's like, I looked at the Nuggets T-Wolves going over the other night. I still don't know how that happened either, but it's neither here nor there. This line scares me, especially as a Lakers fan. It doesn't seem like near enough. It's light, and they're begging you to take the Lakers. This has Memphis written all over it. Just 4.5 tomorrow night. What do you like?
I like the Grizzlies, and I got plus 170 on the money line. Also, I just think, I don't doubt LeBron. I mean, I know he can find that second win, but and I know last night was kind of a throwaway game, but they're going to get some young boys, and I think LA's a little tired. But look, Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson and John Moran are playing really, really, really good. And I think when we were talking last week, I was skeptical, or I know I was, that Ja was going to be healthy at all in this series. And I'll be dang if he wasn't. That game 3, he I know it was kind of late and they were rallying, but he had a monster game and he looks just fine. That hand, and that was an awful fall, but he looks fine. I think the Grizz, I think we're going back to Memphis. I know Damon don't want to hear that, and I could certainly be wrong. We'll see, but I like the Grizzlies a lot.
Another Friday night NBA action. Kings are +7 at Golden State. Where are you at on that one? Golden State obviously plays way better at home, but they did get the road win last night. How are you feeling about that +7?
I'm leaning Sacramento, but I haven't done anything on it yet. I see DraftKings has moved to 7.5. See, that's what I want to see.
You're waiting for it?
I'd like to get to 8. I don't know that it will. But I'm also thinking about the over maybe too. Fox still had a pretty good offense. I mean, he didn't have a monster offensive night, but he was still pretty effective. I think we know we're going to get the pace. So I'm kind of leaning Sacramento in the over, but I haven't played either yet. I've only played those 3 we talked about, or those 2 Boston Atlanta totals, and Memphis. And what do y'all think on Miami, New York, man? I see the 4 or 4.5. It's kind of hard to go against either of those teams right now.
I kind of like the Knicks.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think at some point the Heat have to fatigue, and the Knicks have more depth.
Yeah.
What do we don't know anything about? So it's not till Sunday, right? So we don't really know about Randall yet.
I think you know what, and they played without him. I mean,
I'm thinking the same thing, Damon. They might be just fine without him.
They go 9 deep anyway, so it should be interesting. But you got an NFL prop tonight, and I'm shocked. It involves a Gator. Where are we with Richardson?
I think he's going to go under 4.5. I think he's going to go 4th. So you should be able to get plus 200 or better, but these odds are shifting crazily every day. So I haven't seen it yet this morning, but I think he goes. So if you get under 4.5 or under 5 at plus money, I like Richardson.
Going early.
There we go.
Rolling the dice. Chomp on. B, we'll talk to you next week, man. Appreciate it.
My Gators are 0 for life against Damon. Appreciate it.
Good saying. Thanks, B. We'll talk soon. Coming up on Coffee and Cream, Michael Bruntz.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
1-0 pitch. Drilled to left field. Going back is Cam Frederick, looking up, and it is gone. Matthews drives it out of here. 15th home run of the year, and the Huskers extend the lead to 6-2.
Oh, a little positivity. Coming in, last hour of Coffee and Cream in the morning. Welcome, KFOR in Lincoln. We're glad to have you. Live from H&H Chevrolet Studios. Ravi Lulla filling in for Andrew Rogers, who is in Kansas City, one of 300K. Wow, way to oversell that thing. As we welcome in the senior writer for Nebraska football, for Nebraska baseball and football, and the human jinx, one Michael Bruntz. Bruntsy, good morning. How are you?
Not bad. What's up, guys?
We're gonna stop talking to you after midweek losses, okay? Because I feel a lot like in my former life when I used to do reaction shows. It was always after an L, and I was like, you know what? We just got to stop having me do these. But Brunsey, so help me here, because I was trying to tell this to Ravi. This is before it got out of hand for Nebraska, and I wasn't covering for them. I just was simply saying South Dakota State was on a heater.
Mashes a little bit.
Right?
Yeah.
30 home runs and 10 games, and they added to it last night in 11. They had won 10 in a row, and they could hit the baseball. I didn't see it coming from the mound, but they did sweep Omaha, and they were pretty competitive against Iowa, and Nebraska wasn't. That still wasn't expected, though, right? Is that just what was I doing with that? Was that wishful thinking? Was I couching? What was I doing?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think when I drove to the ballpark last night, I was expecting kind of a midweek game where you got a high score, probably going to see a lot of pitchers, and that's definitely not what we got. I mean, South Dakota State, I mean, they were ready to hit, and that's what they do. I mean, they've got a catcher batting leadoff that hit his 17th home run last night. He's hitting over 400. I mean, they can hit it a little bit. And, you know, the thing that was not expected in my mind, and especially coming off of that Tuesday night game against Omaha, was, you know, South Dakota State's throwing a freshman pitcher with not great numbers. And I think I looked up, and I think he had 23 pitches through almost 3 innings.
Yep.
I think Nebraska's lineup did South Dakota State a lot of favors in that game. Nebraska's lineup didn't strike out till I think the 6th inning, and a lot of that was just because you don't strike out when you're swinging at the first and second pitches and the at bat. I mean, it was just the approach wasn't good. You know, Will Bolt was having to get the team together in the dugout in the first inning. So that's what happened, and that's what gets you beat in midweeks if you're not focused and ready to play. And I don't think that Nebraska was last night, and it's, you know, a little bit of a head scratcher, and it's happened this season, you know, multiple times where coming off of a good game, you just get an absolute dud, and that's what last night was.
Bruntz, so the conversation Damon and I were having last night while we were watching this game was, it felt like to me people were kind of trying to talk themselves into this team as a potential at-large regional team. And even before the Iowa series, they're plus 100 in the RPI. I didn't know if they had enough strength of schedule left out there to get into a spot they needed to. Were people kind of fooling themselves is probably too aggressive, but am I being overly pessimistic about what this team is and was, or did it just kind of take a wrong turn and now they're out of it?
Well, they haven't had a road to an at-large bid for weeks. I mean, that's not – last night is – you don't want to say it doesn't matter, but the road forward for Nebraska baseball was not going to change based on last night or – I mean, even the Iowa series, I mean, they were going to have to sweep that probably and go to Maryland to sweep it too to even have a chance. I mean, that's just that's the rub on RPI is if your strength of schedule is not good, and for Northern teams, if the teams that you play those first 3 weeks of the season don't hold up their end of it the rest of the year, it's tough. And, you know, strength of schedule is such a big component of it. And you look at where Nebraska is right now. I mean, I think they're last I checked, like in the 170s, something like that. I mean, it's not great. So the road forward for them has been Big Ten tournament. You got to go there and win it. And I think, you know, that's become more clear with getting swept at Iowa and you know, just the inconsistencies in the midweek. So, that's the roadmap. They've got to be ready to go in Omaha. They got to get to Omaha first. But yeah, I mean, this team's a little bit hard to wrap your arms around because you look at the numbers, and this is a team that should probably, you know, have a better record than they do. You know, they're a pretty balanced team. They field the ball relatively well. The pitching isn't as bad as I think a lot of people think it is. And that's just kind of been the tough part this season is just, you know, what the win-loss record is not matched up with what the statistics say it should be.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I know he had the gaudy ERA last night at 18, but Brockett came in. He was low threes. I think he's a 29 to 6, 16, 18 strikes to walkouts. You'd like to see that, or strikeouts to walks. You'd like to see that come down. I made the case to you a couple weeks ago, and I can't remember where you came out on it. On paper, it looks like a good team. And I said, situationally, I'm just not sure how clutch they are. is the guys that they leave on base and inability to break innings open. We heard Coach Bolt last night, runners on first and third, one out. You get a lousy at bat. You don't get a productive out. Is clutch too strong of a word, or situationally, they just seem to not be able to come through?
Yeah, well, when you kind of dig into the numbers, the average with runners in scoring position does not line up with the number of guys they're getting on base. I mean, like, they get traffic on base. I think, what's hurt them at times is you don't have the productive outs. If you're able to get a guy on early in the inning, it seems like it's a little bit of a struggle to get him around and score if you're not getting an extra base hit or something like that. So yeah, that's kind of been, as good as Max and Bryce have been this year, the ability to kind of take a 1 or 2 run inning and turn it into a 4 or 5 run inning just hasn't been there a lot. And yeah, I mean, I think you're right, Damon, that, situationally they've been hit or miss, and definitely, the runners in scoring position and kind of cashing in on opportunities hasn't been consistent enough either. So, I don't know how you fix that at this point. You kind of are who you are, but I mean, that's something that when you really kind of start digging into numbers, those disparities kind of stand out a little bit more, I think.
Yes, because for Nebraska to leave 12 on base last night, which seemed like a lot, and I think they had 6 or 7 consecutive innings where they had a runner on in the inning. SDSU still left 10 on base themselves. So there's something about Nebraska keeping guys from scoring as well, because I think for every time I want to look at LOBs, it seems like their opponents leave a few on too. So there has to be, it's got to be situational, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I would need to dig in a little bit more to the individual runners in scoring position numbers, but it's not just that. I mean, it's stuff that doesn't show up either. I mean, it's a ground ball to the right place and putting a ball in play versus striking out. I don't feel like this team does that with enough consistency. And I felt like, especially early in the year, that was the case where it's like, okay, you just need a ground ball somewhere, and you get a couple guys striking out, or the at-bats aren't good enough, and that's hurt them at times. I mean, I can think back to a couple losses that they had early in the year where it was like if you just had guys make contact a couple times, that the score probably looks a little bit different. And that comes back to how you're able to put pressure on teams, and I think that's a consistency issue, right? Like, what can you count on? And they just haven't been able to count on that enough.
Bruntz, how much of it do you think is, I mean, how much is the clutch part a thing of it, and how much of it is they just maybe don't have enough depth in their lineup in terms of by the time they get past Anderson and Matthews that maybe you don't like the rest of the lineup as much to get the job done?
Shoot, even Matthews had some non-productive outs, though. I get it.
I don't know. I mean, I think they have enough depth. I think they've got guys that are on their bench that could probably help them too. I mean, it's not like you're getting to the 8 or 9 spot and you're kind of scratching your head a little bit about who do we put in this spot because we just don't have anybody. I think that was the case last year sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they have enough depth. I mean, I just think I think guys have kind of taken their turns a little bit and just not taking a single or working a walk and just kind of keeping the line moving. You just have not seen enough of that this year. I think there's some guys that do it very well. I mean, I think, Ben Columbus has had some decent at-bats lately. Casey Burnham's been, really good for them all year doing that kind of stuff. But, I think the depth is fine. It's just the situational awareness sometimes and just taking what's there just maybe isn't where it needs to be right now.
Yeah, not like losing a ball in the skylight.
Yeah,
shows up as a hit,
right?
And it's like, Okay,
but that's a great pitch by the pitcher, right? Like,
right,
you got exactly what you wanted.
Yeah. So I kind of get that, Bruntz. I like how you get past the topical stuff. Let me change gears here just for a couple of quick seconds. When you're looking at the spring game and you don't want the hot take, right? But were you ready to make any generalizations for what you think may be portable in the fall? I mean, do you start with potential D-line depth, or would you not even go there because you're not sure on the O-line? Because that seems to be the conventional, okay, I kind of like our D-line depth.
Yeah, I mean, that's the tough part with the spring, right? Is it this or is it that? And I have to say, though, in just terms of like the way guys move,
mm-hmm.
and just the physical tools that guys are kind of starting with, Cam Lenhart and Princewell, I mean, I think they've got a chance. I mean, I thought they handled themselves pretty well. I mean, both of those guys have been going against Nebraska's one offensive line all spring and holding up their end of the deal. I mean, the offensive line needs to come along, and nobody's questioning that, but I mean, for guys in the first 15 practices of their college careers to be that much in the mix, that kind of makes me stand up and take notice a little bit. And I think this coaching staff is willing to give those guys a chance to get on the field earlier, maybe make a few mistakes, but also with the idea of like, okay, these guys are going to flash a little bit more potentially. So I noticed that. Kai Wallen was another guy that probably didn't get talked about enough.
He played well.
Is going to factor there. So, the defensive line depth was a big concern for me going into the spring, and I think it's maybe sliding down a little bit my list of concerns. Stephon Wynn Jr. going into the portal yesterday, that doesn't help you depth-wise there, but the ends. I think they've at least got some young guys in the pipeline right now that are going to be pretty nice developmental pieces for you.
Bruntz, we've been talking about a couple of different assistant coaches today. After the spring session, is there an assistant that you've been particularly impressed with coming out of the spring game?
Rob Dvoracek's a guy that doesn't get talked about a ton.
Yeah, agree.
And I think he's a pretty sharp guy. I mean, when you watch him coach, he's really hands-on. He's really good about just explaining things in the moment. I feel like that stood out to me when we were able to get out there and kind of watch him practice. Whatever we saw in the individual periods, things like that.
1,000% agree with you, Bruntz.
And also just to, when I've interviewed him separately on different things, not necessarily just the on the field stuff, he's really good at explaining the way that they do things, the why they do things, the really kind of boiling down, how they evaluate prospects. And I think the ability to communicate that stuff, it matters. And when you're a teaching program, you want to develop guys, having somebody like that can do that really well, I think, is a good thing to have. So he stood out to me, and I don't know that he kind of flies under the radar a bit.
You kind of play it safe, Bruntz, but let me get you out of here on this. Is there something that you think that you haven't? Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Is there something that you think that you haven't really said out loud that you want to see if you're right or not heading into fall camp?
I want to see if the offensive line kind of progression is correct. I mean, like, is this a group that with the second year of an same offensive line coach, new system, offensive coaches who have all coached offensive line, can they be better? I think they can. And that's not a huge limb I'm going out on, but I feel like that group will benefit greatly from an offensive coordinator that's coached offensive line, a head coach that dedicates a lot of time, effort, and attention to that group. And I would like to know, I'm not going to know this until they get on the field against Minnesota and Colorado where they're at, but I would like to know if I'm correct in thinking that group is going to be better in this season. I think I thought the top group did okay in the red-white game, and I think that's good for where they're at. Okay is good. That's progress, and we'll see if that continues forward. That's what I would like to know. Is like, okay, I want to be able to look forward 4 months and kind of know where that group is at, because I think they can be better. We'll see if that actually is the case or not.
We're increasing incrementally. Your A's are up to 5 wins. It was 3 the last time we talked. So
hey,
next week it could be at 7. How about that?
Yeah, they've got exciting young guys pumping 99 against Trout and Ohtani. So it's a nice little distraction from everything.
Hey, I appreciate your stick to itness, Bruntz. One of the best, man. We'll talk next week. Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. Watch out for the fire there.
That's wow. It's Michael Bruntz firing off another joke from 24/7 Sports. Yeah. Would you like to get into the Mike Trout useful versus talent thing?
Baseball's really hard.
Oh,
baseball's really hard.
I thought about that yesterday.
Yeah,
last night watching him.
I've been thinking about it almost nonstop since we talked about it yesterday.
I mean, just one postseason appearance.
Yeah, and again, baseball's so hard because it's so difficult for one guy to have an impact on winning.
I get it.
Right? So that's why I would maybe not go all the way there, because how many really, really great players have we seen without extensive postseason success? A lot of them, right? I mean,
and he does average over a 9.
Yeah.
Wins above
replacement. Like, I don't look at Mike Trout as the problem there, right? Like, it's really hard to have a baseball player, no matter what he does, put up incredible numbers and all of a sudden that changes your fortunes, right? Whereas if you have a guy that's actually one of those dudes in basketball, you're a playoff team, bare minimum, right? Like, those dudes get you to 45-ish wins just by being those dudes. And football is really hard too because so much of it's interconnected, but especially at quarterback. If you've got one of those quarterbacks, you're going to the playoffs every year, right? For the most part. And almost regardless of how bad everything else is around them. Because we've seen, like, the greats, those teams make it to the playoffs. They may not be going to the Super Bowl, they may not be true contenders, but they will drag their team to the playoffs. Baseball's not like that, man.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I wonder.
I do too.
But that's why they have wins above replacement in baseball.
Yeah,
to kind of differentiate.
But even the best guys, right? So are worth what, 9-10 wins a year?
Yeah,
that's less than 10% of your games
when you play 160.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's really hard for one guy to impact winning in baseball.
So I think there's only 4 or 5 guys ahead of Trout actively playing with a better WAR.
Yeah, yeah, and so to me, that's an organizational failure with the Angels, not a Trout failure or an Ohtani failure, is they just haven't been able to put it together.
Since we're going to preview the draft here coming up before our Sports Six-Pack, let's get to Michigan Lance. Michigan Lance, good morning, man. What's up?
Hey, what's up, boys? How you doing this morning?
Trying to make it.
Man, that NFC North, man. Hey, BB, that was the hot take you said about old Kirk Cousins, him being the best in the division.
Well, he is, isn't he?
Well, yeah, I'm being sarcastic. Oh. Yeah, that's Captain Obvious.
No, but here's the thing, though. Like, people, the Lions are the favorite in the division.
People don't want to give him that credit.
So my hot take was people forget that they won 13 games, and they're still the best team in that division.
People think Jared Goff is better than Kirk Cousins.
The Detroit Lions are the favorite to win that division.
Really?
I mean, it was gold.
Yeah,
absolute gold.
Yeah, that makes no sense there. I mean, I guess, man, if you're the best of the worst, what are you? You know what I mean? Like that. I mean, so, like, hey, I'm a Bears guy. One thing we know about, like, Jared Goff and Cousins, they have a ceiling, and they've met it. So there's no championships with them. You know, I talked to Schaefer about that. Like, at least with my Bears, hey man, there's still optimism because while Justin Fields hasn't met or reached his potential yet. You know what I mean? So I'm excited. I mean, look what the team they put together. Justin Fields does have to get it done though this year. Like they built the system for you. They got you weapons last year. You know what I mean? They built the system for you last season, and then they got you weapons in the off season. Mm-hmm. So this is the year, you got to take it to the next level and become the top of, if not the top of the division. Not saying you got to be the top, but you should be making the playoffs in year 2 in a system that is built for you and a team organization that is trying to win right now. What I mean? Like,
what do you want the Bears to do?
I want them to make the playoffs.
Well, I want them to make the playoffs. I'm talking about at 9. You want them to trade out? You want to, what do you want them?
You know what? I wouldn't mind trading out. Because do you really believe like there's are you happy about offensive linemen in this draft? I would like to get a lineman. If they get Zigbo, Jackson Zigbo, am I saying his name right? Smith-Njigba, sorry.
You already traded out of the 1. I mean,
right. Hey, I wouldn't mind trading out of a 9 again because this draft. But hey, I want to take a quality pick. Whether it's an offensive lineman, hopefully, or if Jalen Carter falls to that, we'll take that. Right now, right now, the Bears have been making great moves this offseason, making moves like Michigan did years ago. And like, hey, man, I'm excited about what's going on. I trust what's happening right now in the offseason. This is the most trust I have in the organization ever. You know what I mean?
Like Harris Johnson, left tackle. Hey, Michigan fans, appreciate you coming up. It's the Sports Six Pack.
Hey, thank you, guys.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio. Time now for the Sports Six-Pack on Coffee and Cream with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning. Presented by Zipline Brewing Company, makers of Dear Old Nebraska Brew, the official beer of Nebraska alumni.
Yeah, that's right. Dear Old, that is the beer from Zipline where we were down in Lincoln watching state basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have a great result, and one of the guys, Mr. Tomasic, said, "Yeah, parked by old Hopcat," and said, "I just want a beer." So I wasn't thinking because I don't know anything about beer, and I was like, "Yeah, can I get my guy Bud Light?" Right? They didn't say anything; just gave me the beer. He's like, "This is really good. I don't think this is Bud Light." So I asked what it was. That was Dear Old Nebraska U.
There you go.
So it's extremely versatile. So we appreciate Zipline. Thank you very much, Dear Old Nebraska U. And it's my alma mater, so I appreciate that. Shane, just like my man in the bathroom this morning, let her rip.
Question number 1.
Could you believe that in public?
No.
Like, bro, what are you doing? What do you got?
Wow.
Yeah, I was mortified. It's pretty mortified. And he was on the phone.
Have you changed your mind on GS and the Lakers yet?
Change my mind on who I think I trust more.
We both like the Lakers.
I still don't trust Golden State. This is more about Golden State than it is the Lakers for me in terms of not trusting them. And the disparity of them on the road versus at home is so bad.
But you just won on the road.
Oh, yeah, they won 11 times.
I think that begged the question.
Okay, so they have to win at least one on the road in every series. But that's assuming they go undefeated at home, which isn't going to happen.
Well, they were pretty good at home.
Yeah, but they weren't undefeated good at home.
Yeah, but you didn't have Wiggins.
For part of it, yeah, I understand that. You're also playing much better teams.
Don't you think Memphis is going to beat Los Angeles tomorrow?
I still think LA gets out of the first round. Now, my concern with LA is they're putting a lot of minutes on their guys. Like AD and LeBron are logging heavy minutes early.
It just looks like that because of AD's red shoes. It's not that many minutes. He just looks like he's laboring. I'm going to take the championship pedigree.
Okay, so you're switching.
At this particular juncture, I feel better about Golden State than I do Los Angeles.
Okay. I think, honestly, part of it is I've seen too much from Golden State.
Well, you think I haven't?
No, I know. I just get emotional about it.
Dude, I just can't see these guys grimacing up and down the court. And their shot selection is horrible.
Terrible.
You're letting Desmond Bain put it on the deck. Really?
Yeah.
Like he's a musclehead. Bain was a DC character. Like you can't let him just get to the 10 on you.
He's on that mask, that muscle juice.
Yeah.
If you can break Batman's back, you can get to the 10.
Wow. That's my favorite character, Shane. Question 2.
Question number 2.
Safest pick in the NFL draft.
We were just kind of talking about this. We had just teased it a little bit.
So it was kind of like this.
It's a wrong question.
Eric.
Mine's going to be
this is not an interesting answer, I don't think, for me.
Mine is, I hope.
I think it's Will Anderson.
Can you believe he's kind of so I keep hearing that Wilson may go at 2 now.
From Texas Tech?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's nuts. We've been looking at Will Anderson for too long and we're tired of looking at him. Like they've been nitpicking at him for so long. Like don't overthink this.
I'm going with my guy. I've been riding with him since preseason last year.
Who's that?
I'm going with Bijan Robinson.
Fair. That's the only other answer here.
I think Bijan,
in terms of safe.
I think Bijan Robinson is the safest pick in the draft.
I think it's Will Anderson, but I'm not going to argue with Bijan. I mean,
I would probably say Will too, though.
Yeah, those are the 1-2 in some order.
Yeah, I think Bijan Robinson is amazing.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's the real man crush, not the one you teased me about earlier. Shano?
There's no failure in sports.
That's a lie.
Question number 3.
Which quarterback has the best pro career?
This is tough. Because the guy whose talent I like the most is the guy I'm most concerned about getting injured.
Wait, who?
Bryce Young. Yeah. Because I don't believe for a second that man's 204 pounds. Or at least that he plays at 204 pounds. Listen, he's 5'10", 204, right?
Yeah.
I'm 5'9". I've walked around at 190. You look bigger than that at 190. Like, I don't believe for a second that man is 204 pounds. He looks like he's $170 soaking wet.
The best pro career. I'm still going.
You asked me the same question last year.
I'm
Eric.
still going Bryce Young.
I am too, but I don't feel good.
Well, who else would it be?
CJ is my only other option. I'm not taking the other two for sure.
Stroud? Do you believe in the acumen test?
I don't know. It looked like he knew what he was doing at Ohio State. I get that they make a lot of people look like they know what they're doing, but
well, he did play his best against
the best teams.
Yeah.
So I'm not. I don't listen. Obviously, he doesn't take those tests well, and whatever. A lot of people are like that. That doesn't mean they're dumb. Doesn't mean they're not. It just means that's not how they think. That's not how they operate.
Can you have half cultural bias?
I do. Mom's from Iowa. I'm
done.
I think it's Bryce Young, but it makes me nervous.
Yeah, I'm going with Bryce Young. Have another, Shane. My mom's from Iowa.
She is.
Oh, I get it.
How much guaranteed cheddar should San Francisco give Lamar?
All of it. All of it. No, we were talking about this off air. Can you imagine? Can you, whatever, like back up the truck, give him that Deshaun Watson money? I don't care. Guarantee every penny. Like, give him the money.
Do the Niners pull the okie doke with no real great capital?
I would love it. Because he's not signing with Baltimore. You don't. Like, they've kind of got leverage here because he's not playing for Baltimore. It's kind of like the Aaron Rodgers Jets situation, but the Jets
which you'd be cool with the Jalen Hurts contract, right?
100%. 1,000,000%. Yes. Sign me up for that tomorrow.
Yeah, I would give him Hurts contract. If he winds up in San Francisco somehow, that would be scary.
Lose my mind how happy I would be.
The best run game in football in terms of concepts.
And then you put Lamar Jackson in that. You think they're hard to defend now?
Yeah.
With Jimmy G and Brock Purdy back there?
You're punting on Lance and Purdy, but they're on rookie contracts.
I'll say the money-wise, it doesn't matter.
You're okay. You know,
give him whatever he wants.
I still can't believe the Commanders didn't pick up Chase Young's 5th-year option.
What are they doing?
I just think they think he's too hurt all the time.
Listen, whatever
Rivera said a couple months ago, he kind of told us, I would appreciate if you'd work out with our guys more in the offseason.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
No, I know.
And then I got to renegotiate Sweat, too.
I'm just saying, take all my picks. You can have them.
Shano?
Question number 5.
Who is this year's Zach Wilson?
The guy that's got the best odds now, going to 4-1, Will Levis.
That was my first thought. I don't know that there is a Zach Wilson because people got enamored with him in the draft process.
Well, that's Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, he had more of a track record than Richardson did, production-wise.
I'm taking Richardson because I think he may go at 4.
I think you're right.
Although the Colts have enough around him, although I'd like to see them revisit the wide receiving core, but
you could probably scheme some things around his legs to give him time to figure the rest out, if he can figure the rest
and
out.
You have a fantastic running back in Taylor.
Yeah, so that could help for sure. Just so I don't have the same answer, I'll say Will Levis because people really like his physical talent too. He put up good numbers in his second to last year at Kentucky.
I thought you may say Stroud.
No, I like Stroud more than that. Not as much as I like Bryce Young, but I like Stroud more than I like Zach Wilson coming out. Honestly, if you want to be real, it could be Bryce Young because the frame was the big concern for me on Zach Wilson. Now I think Bryce Young's talent's better, but I had going into it before seeing what it looked like in the NFL, the frame was a huge issue for me with Zach Wilson.
I'm with you. Cue Mike Sauter.
Who wins the Big Ten West in 2023?
I mean, I'd probably go safe here and say, I don't know what the safe answer is, actually. I kind of lean Iowa.
I kind of lean Wisconsin.
See, that's what I was debating between. But I think it might take a year with Wisconsin if they don't figure out the quarterback spot.
I'll go Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's fair.
You taking Iowa?
Yeah.
Coming up, we'll talk more NFL draft with Justen Gammel. Up next on Coffee and Cream.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
I think he'll be the first off the board. He's an outstanding prospect.
Tackle-breaking machine.
Sometimes bigger is better. It gives your team some juice.
And there is the reaction. What a dream.
With the first pick in the NFL draft.
Welcome back. Coffee and Cream in the morning. Still live from the H&H Chevrolet studio. Despite the fire alarms, we're okay. We're okay.
We didn't actually burn the place down.
Yeah, Ravi, Lulla holding it down all week, basically. Well,
one more day.
Andrew Rogers is actually in Kansas City at the draft, and we'll talk to him tomorrow. But we get one of the good ones for a multitude of reasons. Number one, he likes to talk about hockey. He tweets about hockey. Number two, he's very good with the NFL draft as we welcome in Justen Gammel joining us. Justen, good morning. Welcome to Coffee and Cream.
Good morning, boys. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, so Colorado guy, man. So's our producer. I called my shot with the Kraken last night. Are you nervous?
Am I nervous?
Are you nervous?
No, going into the series, I kind of had a feeling the Avs wouldn't get out of this round one. With the Kraken being so deep and such a hungry team, and the Avs being without Landeskog and just having some depth issues. So I honestly did not see this being the year for them.
So it's with me. There's like these telltale signs. I was texting Ravi last night. I hate to steal your time talking about hockey, but the 15 shots in the first. And I'm a Pens fan, so I've got no skin in the game. But I picked the Oilers to win anyway, so I'm cheering for as many upsets as possible. But the 15 shots in the first period and not being able to match their energy, you don't think it's fatigue, do you?
I really don't. I think just having the year that they did where they were never healthy together, then they kind of wasted all their, I don't know, wasted is the word, but they used so much energy in that playoff push and getting themselves back into contention and winning the division. It almost felt like they exhausted everything they had just in the regular season trying to get where they currently are. And now they're facing a young, hungry team that has three really good lines. I think the Avs are just in over their heads this year.
Yeah, Grubauer's playing at a high level. All right, let's talk draft. So one of our 6-pack of questions that we got was the safest pick in the draft. And Ravi's answer, he's actually maybe falling a little, especially if you believe the Wilson to Houston deal. But he went with Will Anderson Jr. I went with Bijan Robinson. Are we playing it safe, or do you think something different?
No, I think those are solid picks. I mean, Bijan is one of the best running backs we've seen in recent memory. It's just as far as such a well-rounded game, there's not much you can point at to say this is why he couldn't succeed. I mean, no matter where he goes, he's going to be a baller. And Will Anderson Jr., he might not have elite athleticism like we've seen from recent, top edge prospects, but he's a freaky football player. He does everything well. He's got long arms. He's got upper and lower body strength. He's a savvy player. I think he might not end up exploding onto the scene like a Myles Garrett or one of the Bosa brothers, but he's going to be a solid player. I think another guy who is very safe this year, probably doesn't have the highest ceiling as far as receivers we've seen in recent memory that'll go in round one, but Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State. I think he came in at like 6 foot, 205. He played pretty much only in the slot at Ohio State, but I mean, the guy, he understands separation. He wins with subtle movements. He's got good hands. He's got good lower body explosion. So he really excels laterally. And I think he's not going to maybe be a wide receiver one. He's not going to win on the outside, but he's going to be a very Cooper Kupp type of player where you get him in there and he immediately can kind of carry the passing game from, inside, whether that be the slot or whatever. But he's just a savvy, very natural receiver who can handle being a volume catcher.
Justen, what position group do you think is particularly strong in this draft? Because I know some people like the quarterbacks, but there's not a no-brainer in terms of like a Trevor Lawrence or an Andrew Luck. It seems like the offensive tackle class is not as strong as it's been in years past.
Although you could get 4 or 5 in the top 17.
True. Which is there a position group you think is particularly strong in this draft class?
I think if you're a team looking for cornerback, you got it made this year, because there is probably 6 to 7 guys that I could say could easily be drafted in round 1. And there's so many different types of them. The smaller speed guys, the bigger press corners, some of the cover, or some of the zone players. This is a deep corner class. So I think if you do need one this year, it's a good thing.
So I don't love the style matchup, but I know the Steelers like Banks. They're not going to get Spoon or my man out of Oregon. Do you think the Steelers go DB or do they go O-line?
I think if you have a DB sitting there staring at you in the face that you have a round 1 grade on this year, I think you take him. I think, for my money, Banks might be the best corner in this class. I think he just was kind of an unfinished product of Maryland, but the size, the speed, the dynamic athleticism that he possesses, I don't think you're going to do better, especially where the Steelers are. So I think they should take him. Go look at the game he had against Marvin Harrison Jr. against Ohio State. I mean, he was in his hip pocket the entire game, just bugging the crap out of him. He has, like I said, he has the size and speed to pretty much do anything and hang with any type of receiver. The O-line class is a little shaky. The top guys are not finished products. And O-line is just a tough position to gamble on, so I don't know if I would go that route. If Banks is there for the Steelers, I think that's my pick.
Justen, obviously one of the most talented guys in the draft is Jalen Carter out of Georgia, but he's had some off-the-field issues that are probably going to impact where he gets picked. Where are your thoughts at in terms of who finally goes ahead and makes the call to draft Jalen Carter? Because it probably would have been much earlier pre-combine.
If I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, everything I've heard from any of the circles I'm involved in, I don't think he falls past 5. I still think he goes to Seattle.
I agree.
This is such a weak defensive tackle class that if you pass on him, you're getting a significantly less talented player later. So I think someone's just going to roll the dice with him and hope they can get him in their building and kind of coach him up and get his head on right.
Hey, so are we looking at I'm so skeptical because of the bust rate. Are we looking at closer to a 2011 draft class with Ponder and Locker and guys trading up? Or do you like this class better than the trepidation that appears to be happening late?
I think the one thing that'll change that'll make this class more, let's see, how do I word this? Let's just say this. The NFL has changed to where some of these guys that in 2011 may have been misused or misunderstood. Nowadays, we kind of have more, we have the recipes and the playbooks to make these guys work. So Anthony Richardson won't go to a team that pigeonholes him and just says, you're a pocket passer. They're going to use his mobility and his size and the ability to get him on the run. And they're going to probably do a better job of making him work versus, 15 years ago or whatever, how many years ago, where they might not understand what to do with him. And Will Levis, probably same thing. He has his flaws, but I think hopefully the team that drafts him understands that he has done a lot of NFL-style things. He's been under center. He's worked NFL concepts. He's been under 2 NFL offensive coordinators in college. So he might hopefully have his deficiencies masked long enough to where he can develop into a good quarterback. So I think this will be a better class, all said and done.
Justen, obviously you've got the 4 main guys that everybody's been talking about in the quarterback class. Sounds like Hendon Hooker is likely going to go late first round at this point. Is there anybody after that group that you think goes in round 2 or round 3 that intrigues you at all?
Tough to say. I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson from UCLA has a shot to go a lot earlier than people think, and he might go day 2. He's a dynamic athlete who was I think 4-year starter at UCLA.
It seems like 24 years, but yeah.
Yeah, right. I feel like I remember him coming out of high school thinking like this is the next big thing, and that was so long ago. But he's got the arm talent, he's got the pedigree. I think he'll be taken. I think Aiden O'Connell from Purdue might get taken a little earlier than we think, and maybe Tanner McKee from Stanford, who's a 6'6" player with a big arm. He can move a little bit. There's some good quarterbacks in this class, so I wouldn't be shocked if we see round 2 and 3 kind of get stacked up with those guys.
Justen, so a lot of Chiefs fans here in the area obviously really like Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm thinking, I don't know how he gets out of the first round, but I get it. It's a running back, and value is a real thing. Allegedly, but how far is like a Jahmyr Gibbs from, like, let's say the versatility of a Bijan Robinson when you look at draft grades and how far apart they would be picked?
I think Bijan could be taken as early as 8, but he could fall all the way to maybe the late 20s. I don't think they're going to get picked that far apart from each other. Let's just say that. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is definitely a top 31 pick this year. I think the only thing he's lacking is just the size that Bijan possesses. Bijan has the size to where you can draft him and say, we can run him between the tackles, we can give him 20 carries a game, and we're not scared that he's going to be fatigued or he's going to get bounced around too much, where Gibbs is, barely 200 pounds. So he's not the same guy that you want to draft and just say, let's just run him like we normally would. You're going to want to use him in the passing game more. You're going to want to get him outside more. But this class has such a low percentage of dynamic playmakers and not a lot of sure thing receivers like we normally see. So I think Gibbs' value is pushed up so much because he is such a good receiver, and just being an offensive weapon in general, his value is pushed way, way up. So he'll definitely go top 31. Bijan will definitely go before him, but Gibbs is going to be a first-round pick.
Hey, Justen, before we let you go, what team do you think shakes up the draft order by panicking or strategically making a trade move?
I would look at the Raiders to pull something silly.
Our producers
early on. I think they're gonna do typical Raider stuff and pick someone unexpected or move up into a spot where they probably didn't have to move up. Something's gonna happen, and I think they're gonna be the culprit.
As good as it gets, we're actually going to do this more. We're going to double dip. We're going to talk drafts, football, and hockey, man. Appreciate your time.
Love it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Justen. That's Justen Gammel. That's Coffee and Cream coming up tomorrow. Huge show. And we'll actually hear Andrew Rogers' voice.
Let's do it.
As we'll talk to him when he's in Kansas City at the draft. It's Coffee and Cream. Have a fantastic day.